Laura, it's probably one of the speakers for the land development.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Greg Lingo. Yep.
Laura, that's for Fern Boulevard.
Okay. Okay. Great. All right. Oh, we need these beeps.
Would you turn your camera off?
Mhm. Oh. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us this evening for the Upper Darby Township Council meeting, March 17th, 2021. Happy St. Patty's Day. At this point in time, we are going to do a pledge of allegiance, and then I'm going to talk about the people we're going to honor in our moment of silence. We'll do that after the pledge of allegiance. So please stay standing after the pledge of allegiance. We unfortunately lost quite a few people within our township within this past week that I want to acknowledge. All right. So the mayor has the flag in her screen. So if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And turn your microphones on because I probably muted you. Okay. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America
and
and to the republic for which it stands,
One
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so for the moment of silence, I'd like to acknowledge, unfortunately, we lost school board director Leah Dawes. She left behind a daughter. We also lost Frances Bezlopoulos, a retired township employee and mother of Emily, the training coordinator for Upper Darby Fire Department, and Catherine, who is the neighborhood improvement coordinator. We also lost Joe Martin Sr., father of Joe Martin Jr., director of public works. So if we can have a moment of silence for all of them. Thank you. Okay, so at this point in time, can Councilwoman Billups give us a roll call
Yes.
of attendance?
Councilor Tunis,
Present.
Councilor Michelle Billups is here. Councilor Silva,
Present.
Councilor Blackwell,
Present.
Councilor Gwynn,
You have to unmute yourself. You're still muted. And you're
Still muted.
still muted and you need to fix your name. Try your space bar. Michelle, Councilwoman Billups, can you continue? Oh, there he goes. Go for it. Go, Bob.
Present, but my
Counselor
screen is
Burke?
blank.
Councilor Burke,
Here.
Councilor Sadiq,
Present.
Councilor Faralia,
Present.
Councilor Barnett,
Here.
Councilor Wagner,
Here.
and Councilor President Wentz.
Here.
It's all present and accounted for.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
At this point in time, we have the rules of decorum for the meeting. Upper Darby Township Council and residents will maintain professional respect for each other. council will encourage free speech. However, civility is required, which would prohibit threats, profanity, scandalous, impertinent, and redundant comment, or any comment the discernible purpose of which is to disrupt or prevent the conduct of business of the meeting. Okay. At this point in time, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the committee meeting, February 3rd, 2021?
So move.
Second.
Phillips. Are there any questions or concerns on the minutes? Seeing none, turn on your mics. All those in favor of approving the February minutes of, or the minutes of February 3rd, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Ayes have it. Can we get a motion to approve the minutes of, from the council meeting of February 17th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Phillips. And Sadiq. Are there any questions or concerns on these minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the council meeting from February 17th, 2021, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point in time, I'd like to bring on Dr. Sakella Coles and thank our events planning committee for their fabulous celebration of Black History Month. And today we are going to talk about the Black History Month Poetry Contest Awards presentation. So would Chair Councilors Billups and Blackwell like to say a few words before Dr. Sakella Coles? Ms.
Yes, I would like to, Michelle, Councilman.
Go ahead, Councilor Blackwell. Go ahead.
I want to say that all the poems were fine. It was very difficult decisions. We appreciate you all. Just like Michael Jordan, even though he didn't win, people didn't favor him at that time. You are all winners. Don't forget that and continue to believe in yourself.
Thank you. Ms. Billups?
Just want to piggyback on Councilor Blackwell. You guys were fantastic. It was such a hard decision to make. We appreciate all of you. You're such great writers and so unique in your own way. So thank you very much for participating. We thank you.
Great. Dr. Sakella Coles?
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Sakella Coles. I'm a former Upper Darby councilwoman, and it is my honor tonight to present to you the participants and the winners of the 2021 Black History Month Poetry Contest. Just a couple of background points. This was a poetry contest that I initiated in 2016 for elementary school children in our community to celebrate Black history and to have an opportunity to showcase their knowledge of what they learned of Black Americans, not just throughout Black History Month, but throughout the school year. And I'm sure that after we all heard young poet laureate Amanda Gorman on Inauguration Day, we know just how talented our youth can be. This contest was open to all 4th and 5th graders throughout the township during the entire month of February, with the final cutoff for submissions being March 3rd. First, a couple of special thank yous before we go through the participants and hear from our 3 winners. Thank you to the lovely co-chairs of the Event Planning Committee, Councilwoman Michelle Billups and Councilwoman Danielle Blackwell, for reaching out to me to coordinate the poetry contest again this year, and for your support, and to the members of the Event Planning Committee, Council President Laura Wentz, Council Member Matt Silva, Council Member Hafiz Tunis. Thank you to 2 other wonderful ladies, Dr. Jean Kosher, who is a parent of 2 Upper Darby School graduates, who also works at the municipal branch of our Township Library, and Alexis Sachiti, our Chief Municipal Clerk for Township Council, who volunteered their time to go through all 59 of the poem submissions and assist with judging every single entry. A special thank you to Upper Darby School District Superintendent, Dr. Dan McGarry, and Mr. Frank Salerno, the Director of Elementary Education, for advertising to your elementary school principals and families and encouraging your students to participate. A shout out to Aronimink and Highland Park schools for having the highest number of participants. And a special shout out to Aronimink fourth grade teacher, Mr. Kevin Key, who had his entire class participate. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, the normal in-person readings, pictures, prize, and certificate presentations unfortunately cannot occur. To view the entire list of participants, you can go to the event Facebook page that Council President Laura Witt set up. The list of participants is as follows by school. From Aronimink, we had Afra Ahmed, whose poem was entitled Ruby Bridges. Janesi Alobeyo, whose poem was also entitled Ruby Bridges. Kanadi Baker, whose poem was entitled Kobe Bryant. Caden Bass, whose poem was entitled Kobe Bryant, a Legend. Jaden Burt, whose poem was entitled Jackie Robinson. Roshi Kai, whose poem was entitled Abraham Lincoln. Victoria Cameron, with a poem entitled Rosa Parks. Julian Craig, whose poem was entitled Kobe. Romy Geishmer, whose poem was entitled Kobe Bryant. Anwar Holiday, whose poem was also entitled Kobe Bryant. Seth Holman, whose poem was entitled The Life of Mary McLeod Bethune. Phoebe Howe, whose poem was entitled Racism is All Around. Mara Hunt, whose poem was entitled Rosa Parks. Aiden Jackson, with the poem submission of Black History Month, May C. Jemison. Jay Fan, whose poem was entitled The Beauty of Barack Obama Rap. Gianni Cartivello, whose poem was entitled Robert Henry Lawrence Jr. Luther LaVille, whose poem was entitled What Makes a Hero So Great. Darren C. Macy, whose poem was entitled Kobe Bryant. Leanne McNamara's poem entitled Kobe Bryant. Ryan Montague, whose poem was entitled Obama. Nayab Nasir's poem entitled Martin Luther King Jr. Camille Patrick, poem entitled Mae Jemison. Thomas Ramsey, poem entitled Rosa Parks. Bella Robinson, whose poem was entitled Kobe, the Legend. Brianna Santiasti, whose poem was entitled Harriet Tubman. Umar Starks, whose poem was entitled Kobe was the GOAT, the GOAT, greatest of all time. Billy Strauss, whose poem was entitled Martin Luther King Jr. was right. Jamie Tavera's poem entitled Kobe Bryant. I think we're noticing a theme here with Kobe. And last from Aronimink, David Tyre, whose poem was entitled Ruby Bridges. Moving on to Highland Park, we had Saran Admasu, whose poem was entitled No Freedom at All. Then we had a poem written by two students, Alina Balabanyan and Rowan, whose poem was entitled Michelle Obama. Kristen Belair, whose poem was entitled One of the Most Influential Presidents of All Time. Bozzie Brown, poem entitled Rest in Peace, Kobe Bryant. Fariha and Joshua's poem was entitled When Jackie Robinson Was Alive. Hannah Gola submitted two poem submissions. One was entitled Michael Jordan, another entitled Rosa Parks. Helly Chanel Harris submitted a poem entitled Ruby Bridges Poem. Fariha Islam submitted a poem entitled The Poem of Rights. Three students at Highland Park, Emmanuel Islas, May Van Vo, and Tyler Bukoa, submitted a poem entitled Barack Obama. Inderpaul Carr submitted Martin Luther King Jr. Manreed Carr, poem submission, You Want Me to Stand Up? Skylar Youngblood submitted the poem Equality. Moving on to Stonehurst Hills, Sidear Campbell submitted a poem entitled We Are All People. Bryant Duncan's poem submission was entitled Respectful to Others. Kamel Jari's poem was entitled Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Nikayla Johnson's poem was entitled The One and Only Rosa Parks. Ahmad Mickens' poem was entitled Martin Luther King Jr. And lastly, moving on to Walter Sinkow, we had MD Al-Mumit, whose poem was entitled Martin Showed the Way. Baljit Kaur, whose poem was entitled Why Do People Judge Someone Based on How They Look? And a poem submitted by 4 students, Ekra, Nidra, Lasia, and Daphne. Harriet Tubman is what this is all about. Now, there are several children that we wanted to recognize with honorable mentions out of the 59 submissions for outstanding creativity for their work. Our honorable mentions all will receive a small gift card, which can be picked up from the Township building between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Our honorable mentions are Khalil Copeland, representing Aronimik. His poem was entitled Number 24, as we see another reference to Kobe. Brianna Green, representing Bywood. Her poem was entitled There Was Once a Woman Named Rosa Parks. Ishraq Nashat of Highland Park wrote an acrostic poem entitled Martin Luther King Jr. Acrostic Poem. Madison Lee, also of Highland Park, wrote, I refuse to give up my seat, a tribute to Claudette Colvin. Owens Pierre of Highland Park wrote, Black people from all over the world. And our last honorable mention, Amber Hishbull of Primus wrote the poem entitled Misty Copeland. Finally, now we will hear from our 3 contest winners who all will receive a monetary prize, which can be picked up from the Township building again between 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. These 3 winners have also joined us via Zoom to read their poems. We are going to first hear from our 3rd place winner, Kellen Leposki of Garriford Elementary, whose poem is entitled George Washington Carver, The Peanut Man and the Plant Doctor.
So do I read it?
Yes, you can read it, Kellen.
George Washington Carver, the Peanut Man and the Plant Doctor. Born in 1864, he was a brilliant scientist and inventor. Where there is no vision, there is no hope. These are wise words he once spoke. He taught us different ways to plant crops, so give this man some mad props. He improved the lives of farmers everywhere. He was a professor and scientist who had so much knowledge to share.
Thank you, Kellen. Thank you. That was awesome. We will now hear from our 2nd place winner, Kaiden Lee Graham of Highland Park Elementary, whose poem is entitled Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Hello, my name is Kaiden. My poem is about Ta-Nehisi Coates. For all the stories he wrote, he has outstanding awards. He is Ta-Nehisi Coates. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a world-renowned man. He conveyed his message through Black Panther, and I am a big fan. Ta-Nehisi Coates takes its readers through a journey of upheaval, while Black Panther always conquers the evil. Ta-Nehisi tackled the hard issue Black Panther never withdrew. Tanishi writes about injustice and slavery. He stated, "I was made for the library, not the classroom. The classroom was a jail of other people's interests. The library was open, unending, free."
Thank you, Kaiden.
Welcome.
And last but not least, we're going to move on to our first place winner, Anaya Haynes of Stonehurst Hills, whose poem is entitled "My Past Leads to My Future." And if I'm not mistaken, we also have Stonehurst Hills principal, Ms. Susan Campbell, joining us tonight. Is that correct? Ms. Campbell, were you on as well?
Yes,
And
that's
Ms.
correct. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you for joining us.
We're very excited for Anaya.
And then whenever you're ready, you may begin reading your poem, "My Past Leads to My Future."
Another year for Black History Month, and for me it is a triumph. We celebrate day 1 through day 28, shows that Black History Month is really great. Our accomplishments throughout time is proof greatness comes from the mind. As we look back to the path our ancestors made, strength within ourselves will never fade. Promises made, promises kept are all in our future, and we shall never forget. The steps that were taken in the past leads to the future better for me, makes it brighter for me to see. All of what they have done shows together our thoughts can be as if we are one.
Awesome. Thank you, Anaya. Thank you, Council President Wentz. Thank you to the Event Planning Committee of Council for inviting us, for asking me to coordinate the poetry contest yet again. Thank you to all of the school district administrators, elementary school principals, teachers, and families for participating. I wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Sakella-Coles, for joining us and bringing everyone here. Congratulations to all the poetry writers and the honorees and awardees. Your poems are amazing, and we greatly appreciate you sharing it with us this evening. So thank you all for doing that for us. And thank you to the Events Planning Committee for making this possible. It's a great success.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. All right. So, do we have, I did forget to complete on the roll call side of things. I just wanted to point out that we also had Treasurer Heyman here. We had, obviously we had Dr. Coles and others for the poetry, Black History poetry that have now, many have moved on. And then we do have presentation members from Chris Herr's realm, as well as people will introduce themselves as they go in for other presenters that are here this evening. We also have Solicitors Kilkenny and Richardson, CAO Rangione, Mayor Keffer, and Ms. Dobbins, and Ms. Alexis Chikiti, who our municipal clerk, and Michael Galante is also here with us today. So I just wanted to point them out. Chris Herr, do you have everyone here for your presentation?
Just me.
Okay, great. I wasn't sure if it was you and multiple peeps or if it was just you, so I didn't want to,
No, that's all right. Keeping it simple.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, then take it away, sir.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. My name is Chris Herr. I'm a partner with Maley LLP. We were the auditors appointed for the December 31st, 2019 year end. Very happy to be here tonight to present the reports that we issued in connection with that audit. Just first a little background on how we conduct the audit. We started this process last summer. We came in, this was our first year performing the township's audit. So it was a lot of, us educating ourselves, sitting down with personnel from the township, learning about the township, reviewing the books, reviewing prior auditor records. And then, we started the process, and that process really is us providing a lot of very detailed lists to the business office of the documents that we needed to see in order to audit the records. That's everything from bank statements and reconciliations to pension reports to individual invoices and receipts for individual transactions. Along with that, we did spend a lot of time looking at the internal controls the township has over its processes, and all those things sort of inform the reports I'm going to go over here in a minute. One thing I do like to point out to everybody is that even though it was difficult performing really pretty much anything in the last year, but certainly COVID makes being on site to perform the audit a little more difficult. And we did do some of our procedures remotely. I do like to let everyone know that we didn't let that affect our procedures at all. We still did everything that we planned to do as part of the audit. We didn't curtail any of our audit activities because of the COVID pandemic or our ability to physically access records. If we couldn't get on site to look at something, we were looking at things electronically in a virtual environment. So I do like to point that out, that the audit was business as usual, even though the rest of the world wasn't. So with that said, we really issued 3 reports as part of the audit. There's the main financial statement, and then there's a SAS 114 and a SAS 115 letter. And I'm going to go over each of those individually. I'm going to start with the financial statement. And the way I frame the financial statement is the township's document. It is the township's information. We compile it, but everything in there comes from the financial information, the schedules, the reports, the documents that were provided as part of the audit. The only thing in that report that is mailies is our audit opinion. I don't know if you have it in front of you or not. If you don't, that's fine. It's on page 4. This is an unmodified report. It's also known as a clean report. It's the best, highest level report you can have. It's what you want to have on your financial statements. And what that unmodified report means is that, in our opinion, these statements are free of any material misstatement. They're in accordance with GAAP, that's generally accepted accounting principles. They're in accordance with GASB pronouncements, that's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The reason that this report is 100 pages long is because they have lots of pronouncements as to all the required disclosures that you need to have in this report, and you do have all the required disclosures. There's no scope limitations. Like I mentioned a minute or two ago, we do come in with a very long, lengthy, detailed, tedious document request list, and we did receive everything we needed in order to render a conclusion on the audit. We did have one thing that we added to the opinion, not a bad thing. We did add an emphasis of matter on the second page, and an emphasis of matter is exactly what it sounds like. It's our ability to emphasize a matter to a reader of these financial statements. The emphasis of matter that we added to the opinion was related to COVID-19. This is not something that is specific to the township. This is something that we put in every financial statement that we've issued, whether it's a municipality, a school district, a for-profit, a nonprofit. And I don't think it's just us. I think any accounting auditing firm in the country would have put something like this in a financial statement. Really, because this is a 12/31/19 financial statement, we still have a responsibility as the auditors to disclose any significant matters that occurred subsequent to December 31st, 2019 through the issuance of our report. And obviously the big thing that happened in 2020 was COVID-19. So we do have a subsequent event footnote in the financial statement. And this emphasis of matter is just referring a reader to that subsequent event footnote. And really that footnote is very general. It just says that COVID-19's happened. It's had an impact on the economy. It's had potential impact on the value of investments, especially in pension plans. We do not put any sort of dollar amount or figure. We don't recognize anything related to it. We just sort of tell a reader this happened, could have an impact, but it does not impact our opinion on the financial statements. So that is the opinion on the financial statement. The 2 letters that we issued, SAS 114 and SAS 115 letter I referenced earlier. The SAS 114 letter, it's roughly a 6-7 page letter that we issued. The SAS 114 is the required communication to governance. So it's a pretty cookie cutter form letter, really just goes over some of the broad strokes of the audit. Just to kind of hit the highlights, it discloses our responsibility in relation to the financial statement, which was to render an opinion on the report. We disclose significant accounting estimates for the township, big accounting estimates that are in the financial, our depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation on capital assets. Really anything having to do with your pension or other post-employment benefit plans is all based on estimates that come from your actuaries. Compensated absences based on hourly rates and banks of accrued time. And then investments are based on fair market value estimates. Significant difficulties encountered during the audit. We didn't have any significant difficulties that kept us from rendering an opinion. Uncorrected and corrected misstatements during the audit. There were no uncorrected misstatements. We do have corrected misstatements attached. Those are the last couple pages of this letter. Disagreements with management, we had none. Consultations, we had no other consultations with other accountants. No other significant matters or issues to communicate outside of the SAS 115 letter, which I'm going to get to in a second. So again, pretty cookie cutter form letter that we issued as part of the report. And then the last thing we have is the SAS 115 letter. And a SAS 115 letter is a letter of any material weaknesses or deficiencies that we noted during our audit. It's about an 11-page document that we issued, really made up of 5 findings that are relatively broad-reaching. I'm obviously not going to read through all 11 pages, but I'm going to try to summarize each one of these findings as best I can. And then certainly if there's any questions, I might be happy to field those. So the first finding that we have is in regards to financial reporting. Essentially, the books are not on a GAAP basis, which is generally accepted accounting principles. Now, what I said earlier regarding our financial statement opinion was that it was in GAAP. What has happened is the financial statement records of the township are really kept on a cash basis, which is not GAAP. It's not generally accepted accounting principles. Generally accepted accounting principles means that at any time you can look at the books, you can see accounts payable, you can see accounts receivable, accrued salaries, any of those sorts of things. Those are not maintained in the township financial records on an ongoing basis. What happens is at the end of every year, there's an extensive process to try to go through and collect that information after year end and then book it to 12/31, which is what happened this year. And that's why the financial statement is a GAAP, because a lot of time was spent collecting receivable and payable data and all of that to get it in the financial statement. But on a day-to-day basis, the township is operating on a cash basis, which means expenses are only recorded when checks are cut. Revenues are only recorded when cash is received. Obviously, our standpoint is that any municipality should operate on an ongoing GAAP basis. The other issue that we noted as part of this, which is going to kind of lead into a couple of other findings we had, is it's very difficult in the current accounting system to even obtain the payable and receivable records. Our observation was that it took a lot of IT department help to be able to pull some of that data out of the current accounting system. So not very user-friendly. The second page of our letter goes through some of the adjustments that we needed to make to get your accounting system from the cash basis to the financial GAAP basis. And if you have the report in front of you, it's millions of dollars of adjustments that needed to be made to get your financial statement where it needed to be. The second finding that we have in there, internal control policies and procedures. So one of the things I said we did do as part of our audit is we did look at internal controls procedures of the township. Internal controls, those are the policies, the procedures, the mechanisms that you have to prevent, detect, and correct misstatements in your books, and to ensure the township's accounting and financial information is fairly stated, again, in accordance with GAAP. You know, what we found during our audit was different departments seem to be doing different things. There's no consistent standard policies in place to ensure that all departments process transactions in a consistent manner. Ultimately, our recommendation there is to sort of create a document of how expenses and deposits, receipts that come in the mail, how all that's processed by the township. So every township is, or every department within the township is doing things the same way. So we certainly think that creation of an internal control document will eliminate variations. It's going to help hold everyone accountable and allow for better retention, organization, and accuracy of the township's records. The third finding had to do with some general record keeping types of things. You know, capital asset schedules are not maintained on any sort of ongoing basis by the township. There is a capital asset record. The capital asset record for 2019 wasn't completed until, you know, pretty far into our audit. So that's something that we certainly think should be kept maintained on a more regular basis. Accounts receivable. We had a tremendous amount of difficulty during our audit pulling any sort of accounts receivable listing out of the system. In order to get comfort from an audit perspective, we ended up relying on analytics and roll forward procedures, but that is something that's very high on our list to see the township get fixed, to have a good accounts receivable system where at the push of a button or two, you can see who owes you money. Census data was something else we mentioned here. Census data is the information about employees and retirees that's sent to the actuary. It's used as the basis for a lot of the estimates that go into your pension and other post-employment benefit plans. We tested a sample of 40 employees. The data was provided to the actuaries. We noted 5 instances where the information that was provided to the actuaries did not line up with personnel records. So again, something that you want to correct, make sure it's accurate so the estimates are as precise as they can be. And then the last thing we had was cash receipts. What we saw there was that certain summary information would make its way to the finance department, but then the underlying deposit records would not make its way there. We did have issues finding support for every transaction that we requested, again, because everything is so decentralized. So, you know, again, trying to come up with a better system to maintain and organize the records, we think is going to be critical going forward. The fourth finding we have has to do with grant management. The township records revenue and expense activity for each of its federal grants in one expense account for each grant in the general ledger. So what that means is it's extremely hard in the accounting system to track grants. If you receive a $50,000 grant and you spend $50,000, your financial records will show zero because the revenue and the expense are just zeroing each other out. So we've certainly made the recommendation here that revenues and expenses should be tracked separately. That's also going to help going back to some of the being able to record receivables and payables. As soon as you incur an expense under a grant, you are owed, if you haven't received the money in advance, which is usually the case, as soon as you spend grant money, you have a receivable that you are owed money from whoever that grantor is, whether it's the state or the county or the federal government. So having separate expense accounts is going to make it so much easier for the township to be able to track the grant money that you're owed, and also be able to track over the life of that account how much you spent on a grant or how much you received on. The last finding we have is the information technology software. I personally think a lot of these other problems are kind of flow from this issue. The accounting system that the township has, which is Harris accounting software, is trying to think of a nice way. It's ancient. As far as I can tell, it's no longer supported by the software company. When we came out to perform the audit, the first thing I asked for from any client I have is, let me see the trial balance from last year, the year before I'm doing my audit. Usually that is a couple button pushes. Hey, I'll have it to you in 5 minutes. It took a couple months before I could get it. And when I got it, it was on this giant green and white bar paper that, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen in a municipality in at least 15 years. So, we are in a bit of a modern age now where, there's talk in 10 years, audits are going to be electronic. You're going to send us your electronic data. We're going to put it into a software system. The software system is going to do its thing in the background, and you're going to spit out to us what we have to do for our audit. We're so far from that right now. Just being able to get information out of this system, I saw it throughout our whole audit. It is so difficult. It just seems like any time the business office wanted to get us a trial balance or a general ledger detail report, which is something that we get, it's every individual transaction of the township for the year. It's one of the cornerstones of the audit work we do, to be able to do a lot of data analytics and current auditing procedures. I mean, it seemed like it was in a meeting with IT and they're working on it. It's a very difficult process to get anything electronically out of your accounting system. And until that gets updated, some of the other things I talked about, being able to have the books on GAAP basis where you have receivables and payables and things like that, I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if your current system can handle doing those sort of things. So I really, it's the last funding in our letter, and we don't put them in any sort of importance, but I do almost think this is the most important thing we have in here. Your accounting system probably should have been replaced, to be frank, 15 years ago. It's just not going to do what you guys need it to do now or in the future. So I really want to make sure I drive that point home. I do not own any stock in the software companies. I just was very surprised at how difficult it was to get reports out of the system. So that's it. That's everything I've got out of the audit. I'd be happy to field any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that report. We agree with you. The accounting system is definitely out of date and one of the biggest complaints in our realm. And unfortunately something we all inherited. And I know our mayor and CAO has been doing the best they can under the circumstances they inherited, along with our treasurer Heyman and financial director Marin. They've been, doing their best to work their magic with this ancient piece of equipment. So we were really happy this time around. This week we got our monthly reports that was not in green bar. It was crazy. It was quite awesome. So I'm sure council members do have questions for you. So I'll just open the floor to them. Anyone from council have any questions for Chris Herr? Maybe I spoke too soon.
Or everyone's on mute. You never know these days.
Well, right. They are muted, but normally they raise their hand physically or through the Zoom wave. So does anyone have any questions for him? Councilman Silva?
Sure. Thank you. So it sounds like, to my understanding, then your recommendations are to update the programming that they use to maintain the accounts, to separate the accounts into receivables and payables. So it's not, we're not, I mean, maybe it's a crude analogy. It almost sounds like living paycheck to paycheck to try to sort of figure out what your balance is. Is that kind of how it's been operating? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's not really paycheck to paycheck. I don't know if that's the right analogy. I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Really, the cash basis and I do see cash basis in municipalities, but they're very, very small municipalities that use cash basis. And really, what that means is that usually the accounts payable and receivable are so small that no one is really worried about it. So what happens is they just kind of operate their year on a cash basis. As they cut checks, they go into expense. As they get revenue, it goes into, or as they receive, payments from whoever, it goes into revenue. What GAAP is, what generally accepted accounting principles stipulate, is an accrual basis of accounting, which means, as soon as you send out, I'll give you an example, sewer bills. As soon as you send out your sewer bills, it's a revenue and it's a receivable. And then as people pay in, that receivable decreases. And then at the end of the year, you can look at your receivable and go, here's what people owe me. And then you can have a list of who those people are. What's happening at the township is when you do that billing, you don't record anything. You only record revenue when people actually cut a check and you receive it in the mail. So if anything, it's almost like a timing difference between GAAP and cash basis. Does that help clarify it a little bit?
I think so. So the actual, so like when we send a sewer bill or like an invoice of some kind,
right?
We're not recording that we sent a sewer bill or an invoice of some kind.
I mean, it's somewhere in the system because you did send a bill out.
Okay.
So it's in a billing register somewhere. But when you get your monthly board report of revenue, it's not going to be in there until someone actually pays the bill. Even though you're owed the money, it's not going to be in revenues until someone actually pays.
Okay. I mean, I would just think it, like when we did our budget, I mean, there's an expectation of money that basically will come in and money that'll basically come out. And
right,
it does seem confusing that we're not maintaining that sense of what's in and what's out.
Right. Well, but what you just described is cash basis, because that is looking at what do we think we're going to get. So I would think as part of your budget, and I don't have the numbers at my fingertips, but it's millions of dollars you're owed over many, many prior years in unreceived real estate taxes and sewer revenues are probably the big ones. So if you bill out, let's say $1 million, but you only expect that maybe you'll get 900,000 of it, that 900,000 is what's going to be in your budget, because what your budget is that's what you think you're going to get for the year.
Oh, okay. Instead of the entire amount, because the expectation's
right.
not.
That should be the way the budget system works.
Okay.
It should take into account those differences in timing.
Okay.
Councilman Gwynn?
Good evening. I just wanted to reconfirm this was 2019, 12/31/2019 audit that you performed.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And this was before the current mayor's administration had a chance to get on board to start to get things going. They've done a very good job in not trying to find fault with the predecessors, because they also had to deal with that same system. And it is antiquated, to say the least. Will you be submitting recommendations for prospective systems that might work?
I certainly can. Gary Marin and I have discussed it. I know he has a list of some of the names of vendors that he's collected. I don't think there's a quote unquote best software or worse software. There's certainly some that are more widely used in municipalities than others. What you're going to need to do when it comes to a new software system is get each of those vendors on site, show you demos, show you how things like sewer billing work in the system, or real estate tax billing. How does payables work? Receivables. Most municipalities in this age are moving more towards electronic internal controls, where if the police chief has to approve an expense, and then the business administrator does a second approval, that stuff's all done in the system. Some systems have modules built in for electronic record keeping, where the invoices can actually be scanned and kept in there. So you're going to have to really look at each software system, what they provide and what you want, because each of them has a wide variety of pros and cons. Some municipalities really like Munis is a big one. Other municipalities really like Cassell products. I mean, certainly when he gets a list together, I can certainly provide input. I already offered that I can put him in contact with any other municipalities I know of locally that use that software, so we can bounce ideas off them as well. So certainly I have no problem being involved, in advisory capacity with that decision.
Thank you for your duties that you performed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman Bonnet.
Thank you. Where are we in terms of replacing the software system?
Council President, if I could, that's
Yes.
really more of a me than a Chris Herr. Yeah. So we do have a list together, and we are in the process of vetting that list and evaluating the various features, some of which Chris was just describing. Things like, is it a comprehensive software that handles all departments, or is it a central hub that integrates with smaller software packages? So we're in that process. I would say it's a 2021 goal, but it's going to take some time. I mean, I don't think we'll be up and running on a new system before 2022. But as mentioned, we have started to move off piecemeal and created monthly reports and budget reports and things in Excel rather than Greenbar. So we're still a little bit of a ways away, but the process is ongoing.
I do recall that the previous administration was also looking at replacing the system, recognizing its deficiencies. I think that, Mr. Herr, is it fair to conclude that in spite of the difficulties you may have had in pulling together the information, that there's nothing that stands out that in the final analysis that is inappropriate, other than the things that you mentioned with regard to the technicalities?
No, that's fair. I mean, we did get to a point, like I said, on your financial statement, it is an unmodified, it's a clean opinion. So we did get to where we needed to be, with these issues in the SAS 115, aside, but we were able to overcome them and get where we needed to be.
So all the issues were essentially technical and resolved through your efforts ultimately.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other council members have any questions or concerns? CEO, can we get a copy of the audit reports? I checked in my email. I don't think we got it, so.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I apologize. I I thought that was already sent. I thought you had it in front of you. You absolutely can get it. No question.
And it'll be posted on the township website as well.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. Unless I missed the email, and Alexis will correct me later if I did, but I don't recall getting it. So.
Sure.
Okay.
I know I spoke with Gary about it, but I didn't. So we'll get it to you for sure.
Okay, thank you. Because we may have more questions after we've had a chance to actually read it. If Gary can join us at our April 7th meeting, in case there are further questions on it. Is that okay?
Sure.
Great, thank you so much. So anyone else have any questions for Mr. Herr? Ms. Phillips?
Thank you, Council President. I don't know if it's, well, I guess it's a question. So, Mr. Herr, when you were talking about your findings, you said that the financial reportings, there were no gap bases because of no accounting principles, and there was no maintaining basis in the township because of we're operating on a cash basis, and the system was not user friendly, right? That's what you said. I might
Paraphrase, but sure.
Yeah, I think I'm paraphrasing. Yeah. So when you said operating on a cash basis, because I think you mentioned something about also about the grant management. Like if we get $50,000 in and $50,000 out, you know, we have a zero balance. Can you just explain it just a little bit to me what you meant by that?
Sure. The way grant management should work is when you receive a grant, community development block grants being probably the biggest grant that the township gets. So if you get a $1 million grant, as you incur expenses under that grant, you should record them in an expense account. And then usually on a monthly basis, you'll look at your expenses and you will submit a report to HUD and draw down on your $1 million grant based on the expenses you incurred. And when you draw down, that's when you'll recognize the cash and the receivable side. So at any point, you should be able to look at your books and say, okay, I got a $1 million grant. I've got $1 million of expenses. And then you should also see revenues. And if the revenues are only 500,000, you go, oops, I need to go and request more money. I need to go back and, request my other $500,000. There's a concept in accounting called matching, where your revenues and expenses should sort of equal, especially for grants. So right now, when I got the initial trial balance, there were certain grant accounts where I saw maybe there was $1,000 in the grant account, an expense or a revenue account. Let's say it was expense, just for an example. So I would see an expense with a year-end balance of $1,000, but when I actually went in and looked at the line and looked at the detail, it was actually, you received $10,000 and you only expended 11. And it was the net of that was left over. So when we look at your books, I can't see that you spent $11,000 and you have revenues of $10,000. I just see $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the concern there with the matching. There's a lot of rules that go into grants.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot, especially when we talk about community development block grants. There's pages and pages of Office of Management and Budget rules over that money. And some of the general rules are that you are actually required in your accounting system to track every grant separately, not just CDBG as a whole, but you might have a community development block grant for 17, 18, and 19 still kind of flowing in 2019. You should be tracking each of those grants separately and the revenues and expenses separately. So really, if you have all three of those going in a year, you should have 3 revenue accounts and 3 expense accounts. So you should have 6 accounts in all, but you have 1. That's what we talked about when we're talking about the grant management concept.
So is it fair to say just to have a separate account or a separate, I don't know, system just for this grant management account?
Some municipalities do that. They will have a, sort of a grant fund that's sort of separate where they track all these things. It's funny, the township actually does have a fund that's in the financial, I believe it's called community. Oh, I'm gonna kick myself if I get it wrong. Community block, community grants, it's called. So you actually do have a fund for that. What's funny to me, at least as an accounting, is your community grants fund does not include your community block grants. Those are over in the general fund, which, so it really comes down to just sort of an organization and tracking of the grants at the end of it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I see Councilman Silva, or sorry, I saw Councilwoman Blackwell first, then Silva, then Wagner. So, Ms. Blackwell.
So just for the public and our constituents, would you like to elaborate? I'm not sure if this is the exact time to discuss what would be the indirect and the direct cost of the grants and how we would be able to allocate that.
Indirect costs get to be a little bit tricky. I don't see that too often.
Right.
Usually, if you use indirect costs, that actually has to be approved by a grantor agency. I would have to look at the specific rules, but if a municipality, I know there might be a 10% de minimis rule that came about with the uniform grant guidance 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
But yeah, usually that's something that would need to be approved.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Councilman Silva.
Thanks. I guess is there a concern then we're like not in compliance with the community development block grant? I mean, it would seem like they have a purpose, and if we're not tracking the money coming in or where the money goes, I mean, is there a chance we're not in compliance as far as recording how the money is used?
We have not performed the single audit for 2019 yet. The single audit is the audit of federal awards. We're waiting for the finance department's business office to finish sort of going through this project of organizing the grants and figuring out what the expenses and revenues were for 2019. So we hope to get that underway shortly. The CDBG grant, I have looked at it a little bit. I tried to do a little bit of work in advance, just through the regular audit. I'm not as concerned because that is a very large grant that does have an outside advisor helping manage that grant. That seems to be pretty buttoned up at the 10,000 view I'm at now. What I'm more concerned about are the grants that are more trails, any recreational grants you have to put in trails in the township, police grants for things like bulletproof vests. Those are smaller grants that maybe fly a little more under the radar. Those are the ones that I'm more concerned about. CDBG, I can't say yet where I'm going to be. I'm not as worried about CDBG as some of the smaller grants.
Grants that have a specific purpose.
Yes, federal grants, state grants, things like that. And again, that's what Gary Marin and his team right now are working on trying to organize and reconcile for 2019 and forward.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And so next up is Councilman Wagner. And Councilman Wagner, I do owe you an apology. That was the second time Councilman Silva spoke, and I should have had you gone first. I'm sorry. I just realized that.
That's no problem. I'm always glad to defer to Councilman Silva. I really am. Thank you. Mr. Herr, I just have a couple of brief questions for you. I'm confused by both the content and the tone of your entire presentation to us. And I'd like to try and clear that up a bit.
Sure.
This council has had several different presentations from financial advisors that the township has hired. And without exception, their statements to us have been that the township overall is in perfectly good shape financially, that we had the same surplus at the end of last year that we did the year before, that we enjoy an A+ credit rating from Standard & Poor's, which puts this township in a position to borrow, if it wants to, some $30 million or up to that amount that's been proposed by the current administration. Yet to listen to you, it sounds like the township's been operating in the dark ages. Is that really what you meant to say? I mean, did you find that things were in a terrible condition, or that money was missing, or anything like that?
I had no point during this presentation indicated in any way, shape, or form that money was missing. I actually haven't spoken really at all about financial condition. When financial advisors come in and they're looking at, usually they're asking for an audited financial statement as the basis for their conclusions on financial condition. They're not coming in and looking at how that audit was put together. So I'm here looking at sort of how do we get to those financial numbers that the outside advisors are looking at. And if you were to provide, just right now, currently, print out of your system a report and give it to your financial advisors, what I'm telling you is it won't be accurate, because you're not operating on the right basis of accounting. So what we're doing through the audit process is getting you from that cash basis I was talking about, which isn't GAAP. It's another comprehensive basis of accounting. We're getting you from there. We're trying to work through the systems that you have in, with your software and with the way things are tracked to produce the financial statement, which, as I said at the very beginning, we have an unmodified opinion on this financial statement, which is a clean opinion. I think the words I said was, this is the best opinion you can get on your financial statement. So certainly by no means or measure have I meant to indicate that the township is in any sort of poor financial condition. I haven't said anything regarding that at all. My comments are more on sort of the bricks and sticks, the basis of the accounting system, and the difficulties we have getting from the accounting system to your clean financial statement.
So you haven't meant to disagree with the previous presentations we've had?
I don't know what those presentations were.
Well, I just told you what they were.
I don't know exactly what they said regarding financial condition. If they were basing those on, the financial statements they saw at the time, I would have no reason to disagree with any conclusions they made.
Okay. And then you weren't intending by your presentation to malign anybody?
No, I didn't malign anybody, sir. I apologize if it seemed like I was.
No, not at all. I just wanted to clear all that up. Thank you very much.
No, I appreciate it.
Are there any other questions from council members? Okay. I just wanted to thank you for your audit. I mean, we've been concerned about the AS 400, and residents over the years have asked for line item reports, and it was not a easy, feasible thing to get in many situations. So I believe what you're implying is you found the same thing to be true, that it was hard to line up all the pieces together in a way that would make a whole lot of sense. So, definitely, I'm really glad that our administration is looking into a new program that will make all of these things line up correctly, our grants being tracked, and all the funds being tracked in a way that it's easily accessible for anyone who's looking for information. So thank you very much for clarifying those things. Awesome. Anything else? Seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation and joining us this evening.
All right, I appreciate it. Thanks. If there's any questions that come up after this, please feel free to reach out, and beyond that, have a good evening.
Thank
Okay,
you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So. All right. So next up, we have our public forum. So if Ms. Dobbins can join us. Oh, I forgot to ask.
I was just going to say, Council President Wentz, I'll be reading the public comment tonight.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. And CAO Rangiani, I forgot to ask Mr. Herr if he could send us his presentation in written form so that we can have it for the minutes. I completely forgot to ask him that before he hopped off.
Oh, okay. We can follow up with him. Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, because Alexis had texted that to me and I completely forgot. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Miss. Oh, wait, actually I gotta get timer. Miss Phillips and I are timers. So let me get us set up. Timer action. Okay, I'm the 3-minute timer. Miss Phillips, you've got the 2.5 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
First comment is Emil and Jacques Latini, 715 Elm Tree Road. Please be aware that we are opposing any zoning variance regarding the property known as the Thompson Tract. Our property borders this tract and would be adversely affected by this development. We purchased our property in 1994 under the good faith of Upper Darby Township's RC zoning, believing that the zoning protection would do what it was created to do, protect. As an Upper Darby resident and taxpayer, I do not believe that it is the township's responsibility to alter zoning because the current zoning wouldn't be cost effective since it only provides for single homes on 15,000 square foot properties. Our property would suffer if the zoning was changed, as would all the surrounding properties. That should matter. Please continue to support the taxpayers of this community by denying the request to alter the current zoning designation. Thank you, Emil and Jacques Latini.
Thank you. Thank you. Just wanted to acknowledge that the zoning board is having a special hearing on April 22nd at 7 p.m. to discuss Thompson Tract. So any questions or concerns should be sent to them. Okay, go ahead.
Elizabeth Meyer, 610 Orchard Way. As a 42-year resident and taxpayer of Upper Darby Township, I strongly oppose the proposed rezoning and commercial development of the Thompson Tract at 800 East Providence Road. The addition of roughly 240 apartments in our community is in direct conflict with the RC residential conservation zoning initiated in 1985 to conserve environmentally sensitive areas. Overdevelopment of this property will adversely affect the quality of life and character of the surrounding neighborhoods, with significant loss of green space and wildlife habitat, increased vehicular traffic, including support services for trash removal, police, and fire, harsh commercial lighting of parking lots, overflow parking on adjacent streets, and an added burden to our educational system. Due diligence on the part of the purchaser of the Thompson Tract would have certainly revealed the restrictions set for RC zoning. To claim now that building within zoning codes, single-family homes, would be a financial hardship is absurd and will set a precedent to overturn established zoning according to one's own will. Respectfully, Elizabeth Meyer. End of comment.
Thank you. And next.
Linda Carruthers, 535 Wood Glen Road. As a resident who has lived here since 1980, I am vehemently opposed to the proposed zoning variance. The increased traffic congestion, reduced street parking, destruction of natural habitat, and further strain to an already overburdened school district would be enormous. This neighborhood promotes nature, wildlife, and quiet. Our local government leaders must protect this unique land and be proud of its inclusion in an otherwise densely populated township. Thank you, Linda Carruthers. End of comment.
Great, thank you. Next.
Francis Russell, 725 Roselawn Avenue. I would like to vehemently object the proposed zoning change regarding the Thompson tract. When I and others purchased our homes in this area, it was understood that the acreage could only be developed for detached single-family homes. We would not have purchased here otherwise. This change in zoning would have a devastating effect on hundreds of households in our area. Not only would our property values be adversely affected, but the quality of life which we enjoy would change significantly. To even consider this change in zoning would be a complete betrayal of all the Upper Darby residents in this area. In these unprecedented, turbulent times, our homes have been a secure and stabilizing refuge. To grant this variance for the building of 240 apartments on the Thompson tract in the midst of an unpredictable pandemic and political upheaval in the country would further threaten our peace of mind, health, safety, and security. Respectfully, Francis Russell. End of comment.
Thank you. Next.
Larry and Anita Mellon, 511 Main Avenue. We are aware that council doesn't decide on variances or any zoning issue. We write to you tonight just for your support. A show of your support could go a long way. If you care about Upper Darby, then why wouldn't you support the opposition to building a large apartment complex in an already densely populated area? You have heard many times about the serious issues concerning increased traffic, overcrowding of schools, overwhelming emergency services, and overflow parking. But the real issue here that can't be overlooked is the RC classification. This is not an opinion, it's a fact. It was done to protect this sensitive area and the erosion of the soil around the Darby Creek and to prevent it from flooding. That need hasn't changed. You may not be aware that the former property owner applied for a use variance to build apartments in the 1960s and it was denied. They knew then, as we do now, that this is a bad idea for our neighborhood as well as it is for the township. Please show us your support. Larry and Anita Mellon, end of comment.
Thank you. Next.
Donald Procopio, 514 Montana Avenue. I am writing to express my dissatisfaction with the council's decision not to ask the township solicitor to join the zoning hearing board meeting on the proposed development of the Thompson tract on 800 East Providence Road, a meeting which has now been postponed to a special session on April 22nd at the request of the developer. In the debate on this issue, the mayor did not want to get involved despite hearing letter after letter in opposition to the development from Upper Darby residents who will be impacted by the development. In the debate on this topic, Mr. Rangione stated that it would set a bad precedent to send the solicitor to this hearing. I believe it to be entirely appropriate for the council and mayor to send the solicitor to advocate for the citizens of this township. In fact, it was noted in the debate that Yaden and Lansdowne had joined as parties in recent zoning hearings, and Alden Borough has hired counsel to join in opposition to this very zoning variance application. Perhaps these neighboring municipalities have more interest in protecting the rights of their citizens than our mayor and this council. When we elected you as our representatives, we expected you to advocate for our best interests, and unfortunately, we have to look to some of our neighboring towns to see evidence of such advocacy. Several council members stated in the discussion that they didn't know enough about the issue. I would encourage all of you to come over to the neighborhoods adjoining the Thompson tract and witness the abundance of signs on our lawns in opposition to this proposal. Feel free to knock on my door at 514 Montana Avenue, and we can have a discussion in person about the impact this development would have to the neighborhood. Although living in this house for the past 36 years, I have lived in the general neighborhood for all of my 59 years. My paper route as a youth included the Thompson house, and I remember seeing Mrs. Lilias Thompson, the namesake of the property, frequenting in the area, so I can clearly speak to the history, nature, and community feeling of the neighborhood. Mr. Rongione, in the council debate on the topic, also implied that the residents have been spreading false information about the proposed development. What I heard in the many letters read at the council meetings were heartfelt and factually accurate comments from Upper Darby residents. In fact, Mr. Rongione, who appeared to be advocating stronger for the Dwight City Group than for the many citizens of this neighborhood, was guilty of spreading false information. He made a point of the fact that the developer proposed to preserve the American chestnut trees on the tract, something only disclosed in the developer's prospectus for the construction. In fact, the trees are not American chestnut trees, but rather more common Chinese chestnut trees, which are not extinct. Perhaps Mr. Rongione would therefore be more interested in having the township solicitor at the zoning hearing board meeting to ferret out accurate details and information from the developer. Finally, I would point out to the council members that we residents are clearly aware that development can happen on this land, and we would support development within the current zoning code. As suggested by the council members, we will be present in full force at the meeting discussing this plan and will present our opposition. But as the mayor so eloquently stated in the debate on this issue, the zoning hearing board is a very independent body. It is a quasi-judicial body responsible for enforcing and granting variances to the zoning code. Their decisions do not come back to the council for confirmation. The only right of appeal to their decisions would be in a court of law. Considering the independence that the mayor identifies on this board,
We're at time.
there's like 2 more sentences.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
Okay, incumbent on this council and this mayor to send the solicitor in opposition to the proposal. Being a plain citizen, I realize I have no standing to suggest a motion to reconsider your action from the last council meeting, but I hope that you would be willing to reintroduce that motion. End of comment.
Okay, and next.
Diane Lombardo, 515 Main Avenue. I am writing to voice my opposition to approval for the variance application of Dwight City Group for the Thompson tract. A 240-unit apartment complex would be detrimental to our community for the following reasons: increased congestion and traffic, decreased safety on the surrounding streets due to the increase in traffic, overcrowding in our schools, which is already an issue, it will just worsen, reduction of open space in a township that has very little open space left. End of comment.
Thank you. And next.
Frank Devers, 611 Orchard Way. I bought my house at 611 Orchard Way in 1985. A big factor was the zoning designation. I see no valid reason to change it. Greed is not a valid reason. Apartments will create parking problems, traffic nightmares, more crowded schools, sewer issues, house price deterioration, just to name the obvious objections. You can build some nice houses there. End of comment.
Great. And next.
Joanne Boyle, 12 Arbor Lee Road. I oppose any change of the present variance of the Thompson tract, which is RC zoning, which permits only single-family detached homes on 15,000 square foot lots. Any change of this variance would cause substantial detriment to the public. The Dwight City Group is looking to change the current variance as they are proposing a 240-unit apartment complex that would completely alter the integrity of the surrounding neighborhoods. The population density would enormously increase, causing traffic congestion on Providence Road and neighboring streets in the Roselawn, Penn Manor, and Penn Pines sections. This will lead to overflow parking on neighboring streets, causing safety issues to the residents and their children. As neighbors, we have already witnessed the hit and run on Providence Road at the site of 800 Providence, where a neighbor was struck and killed by a car due to this already overpopulated neighborhood. The variance sought will markedly decrease the purpose of providing adequate light, air, and open space, causing an undesirable visual environment. There will be an enormous problem with stormwater management. The HVAC system generated noise for the number of proposed units will be a detriment to the health of the adjacent residential neighborhoods. The area is already overpopulated. This would also negatively impact the already overcrowded Upper Darby schools and will negatively impact the police, fire, and sanitation departments. As a homeowner that lives adjacent to the Thompson tract, I urge the Upper Darby Council and Zoning Board to reject the application of variance. End of comment.
Oops, sorry. Okay. And next.
Terry Diaz Bradley, 1213 Morgan Avenue. This township is only as good as the people we entrust to lead it. My family pays $12,000 a year in taxes to live in Upper Darby Township. Taxes have gone up every year for 20 years. For that exorbitantly high rate of taxation, and even for much, much less, it is reasonable to expect that all elected and appointed officials serve all the people of this township fairly, equitably, and without reservation. It goes without saying that enforcement of laws legislated by this elected council and the previous ones be done so with integrity and complete transparency. 3 certified arborists and 1 expert in hazard tree risk assessment have identified 2 poplars located at 1217 Morgan Avenue to be diseased, in distress, and in decline, each 80 to 100 feet tall and likely to fall, which would most assuredly cause death or seriously bodily injury and extensive property damage. Both trees have already caused significant and costly property damage to the home where my family and I live. Upper Darby Township has become infamous among arborists for having neglected trees that are a menace to its residents and a public nuisance. For decades, the Upper Darby Property Maintenance Code has had a law specifically legislated by council authorizing the Shade Tree Commission to act to protect residents from the dangers posed by hazard trees. More offensive and embarrassing than the bad reputation resulting from neglect of this hazard is that this law is enforced selectively or arbitrarily at what appears to be the bypass of the Shade Tree Commission and the instruction of the mayor and the township employees she supervises. Some residents have called and asked the section of the code to be enforced, and the township has complied without reservation. Other residents call and get no response from township officials or are left to suffer the risk of death or serious bodily injury while the township allows the property owner posing the risk to flout the law without consequence. Not only is there brazen violation of the Property Maintenance Code, the township has now fully engaged in violating the Right to Know Act, exposing taxpayers to a $1,500 fine for each of the 15 violations, money that could easily and more productively go toward funding desperately needed projects overseen by our school board or some other much needed project. All this is in addition to the cost of lawyers' fees the township will have to cover. It's not just violative of several laws, it's a dangerous cat and mouse game being played while council has been silenced, L&I has been silenced, the Shade Tree Commission has been silenced, all by a mayor that campaigned as the transparency and anti-corruption candidate. I would like to know what the criteria is for getting the township to enforce the law evenly and equitably for all its residents. This question is for the mayor. What is it?
Time's up.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
So a couple things. Public forum is not a forum to direct specific questions to the mayor, the administration, or council at all in any way. It is an opportunity for the public to share their opinion, and many members of the public have done that and will continue to be able to do that, and Ms. Bradley is certainly entitled to her opinion. She's made many false factual assertions. I'm not going to get into a protracted sort of back and forth of that kind. Many township hours, including many hours of our solicitors, have been spent, which is to say many thousands of taxpayer dollars have been expended helping Ms. Bradley work through her dispute with her neighbor. She's received an extensive amount of attention from our solicitors and an extensive letter from our solicitor outlining the township's position and the answers to most, if not all, of her questions. And that letter from the solicitor speaks for itself. This is a dispute between neighbors. It's a civil matter. And everyone in the public should rest assured that myself, the mayor, the Department of L&I, the solicitors, and really countless township employees have spent more hours than I can count and more thousands of tax dollars than the taxpayers would be comfortable with addressing this issue.
Thank you. And also at our last meeting, Solicitor Richardson read the letter that had been sent to the Bradleys addressing this issue, clarifying that it was a civil case and that the tree was not in danger to that point, and that it landed on the homeowners to deal with versus the township.
Correct. And, oh, I'm sorry, on the right to know issue, the township also invests a significant amount of resources, personnel, hours, dollars, including the solicitor's office to deal with the extremely high volume of right to know requests that we get. We do have a small handful of serial requesters, of which this particular resident is one. But even without that small handful of serial requesters, those high volume requesters, it's a big township and we get a lot of requests. But our solicitors review every right to know request and every determination by the right to know officer, who is myself. So we take it very seriously. And we, of course, believe that we are in compliance with the right to know law.
Great, thank you. Councilman Wagner?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Mrs. Bradley lives in my district. She has reached out to me as well. I am in no way an expert on trees, and I'm not criticizing the township at all here, and I'm not disagreeing with anything that Mr. Rongione just said. I am, however, going to offer a suggestion, another alternative, which might be the best way, in my mind, to bring this to a conclusion and end it. And if, in my opinion, it might behoove the township just to hire its own arborist, go out there and look at the tree itself, himself, herself, whoever it is, and make a definitive recommendation to the township as to whether or not it's really a hazard. And if it's not, fine. We report that to Mrs. Bradley and be done with it. If it is, if the arborist says it is a hazard, then require the property owner to take it down. That's another suggestion only that I'm putting on the table. I'm not an administrator. This is not up to me. I've made that clear that I know this in any recommendations or communications I've made with the township. I just wanted to put that on the table as another potential alternative here. That's all.
Absolutely. And just to be clear, I mean, I understand your suggestion, Councilor Wagner, and I appreciate it. And on its face, it is reasonable enough, just so that the council and the public are sort of aware of the thinking. The issue is we've got 85,000 residents, we've got hundreds of thousands of trees. And so maybe if we did that, it would end this specific issue with Miss Bradley, although there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it would not end this issue with Miss Bradley. But even if it would, the precedent that it would set and that it would create could become very burdensome and very costly if every township resident, wanted to ask us to hire an arborist, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the rub. And I do understand your suggestion.
And please understand as well, I understand what you just said, and I'm not disputing it. I'm really not. It's just another suggestion. That's all. Upper Darby is, and Drexel Hill in particular, a very old community with therefore a lot of old trees. I completely understand that and I get that. I'm just offering that as another suggestion, but I'm not an administrator. I get that. So fair enough.
Understood.
Mayor Keffer, did you want to say something?
No, I think CEO Rongione pretty much covered everything. It's a slippery slope for us to engage. an arborist or anybody else in what our solicitor has determined to be a civil matter. That's all.
Great, thank you. Great, all right, and then next.
Martin and Julia Wiley, 714 East Providence Road. We oppose zoning ordinance for above stated property. Some of the reasons are overflow parking, impact on wildlife, preserving the peaceful neighborhood, RC zoning and township services impact, and keeping the open space. We have lived here 43 years with the zoning for Thompson Tract reflecting the protection of the neighborhood. We are especially worried about traffic since the driveway for apartments will stream even more traffic onto Providence Road. Our concerns are valid. There has been a few fatalities on this road. One fatality was in front of our house. I was told that Ms. Thompson's father was hit by a car and died. There are other fatalities and accidents. Speeding cars and illegal passing of cars happen every day. It is already difficult pulling out of driveway. My neighbor parks cars on lawn and on sidewalk, blocking our view to pull out safely. Courtesy and patience by other drivers is virtually non-existent. There are 4 houses across from Thompson Tract with senior citizens and 2 houses with children. A traffic light would be more of a hindrance than a help. Please protect your citizens and keep Thompson Tract green. Thank you. End of comment.
Okay. And next.
Gloria A. Griffin, 123 Hilldale Road. I am a homeowner and taxpayer in Upper Darby Township. I have resided at 123 Hilldale Road for almost 23 years. The purpose of the email is to express my disapproval of the Thompson Tract for numerous reasons. My number one concern is the increase in traffic the project will bring. The traffic is already horrendous. I have witnessed many accidents on my street. The traffic does not adhere to the speed limits and the law enforcers are unable to control them. I often told Rep. Nick McCosey that eventually someone was going to kill me as I exit my driveway. For a senior citizen, this traffic is scary. End of comment.
Thank you. Can we look into the traffic situation on Providence Road? There's been a lot of discussion on the accidents and so forth and the speeding. I know that there's a list of streets that you're looking into, but if we can make sure to add that one to it, that would be great. I'm guessing it may already be on your list, but I just wanted to, since we had so many comments on that. Councilwoman Fralia?
Yes, there was a study done 2 years ago, so you could get, it should be in our files. I had asked Joe Martin to look for it and send it to me because there was one done 2 years ago on that area.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, and next.
John and Peggy Schmidt, 720 East Providence Road. My husband and I very strongly oppose the request for a variance for 800 East Providence Road, Thompson Tract, and the building of 240 apartments. This could be equivalent to over 400 cars. Traffic on Providence Road is currently very heavy and is bumper to bumper during morning and evening rush hours. We have difficulty getting in and out of our driveways. Traffic would also be a nightmare on Springfield Road and surrounding streets. The apartments would also be a burden on our already overcrowded school district, specifically Primos, Drexel Hill Middle School, and Upper Darby High School. This property is zoned for single-family homes and is surrounded on 3 sides by single-family homes. These outside developers knew this when they bought the property, and we resent their attempt to destroy our quality of life to make a buck. Our property values will plummet. At least one neighbor is listing their house as a result of this issue. My husband has lived in our house since it was built over 70 years ago. We hope to live out our retirement years here. We urge Upper Darby Council and the Zoning Board to reject the application for a variance. End of comment.
I'm sorry, Council President, just one quick clarification that seems to run through a lot of the comments, but is not factually accurate. The property has not been purchased. What you have here is a very common conditional sale agreement. So if there is a zoning variance, the developer will purchase the property. If there is not a zoning variance, there is no purchase agreement. So just by way of clarification, I mean, not in support or against, but the Dwight City Group does not own the property. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
And it's very common. It's very common that a purchaser will say, I will purchase the property if these conditions are met. Sometimes the deals go through, sometimes they don't.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And next.
Gwendolyn Dubois Shaw, 524 Cherry Lane, also known as 2 Cherry Lane. Dear council members, I am writing in opposition to the proposed development of the Thompson Tract on Providence Road. I own the property at 524 Cherry Lane, a few blocks away, and am concerned about a large development going into the neighborhood, especially one so close to the intersection of Providence Road and Springfield Road. This is a really dangerous intersection, which would be made even more so by the addition of 200 plus units and the cars that would come with them. Pedestrians have been run down near this crossing, and our large influx of residents and the children who would come with them would be imperiled by the current situation. A few years back, when Little Flower Manor was up for sale and the developers who were considering the purchase wanted to build a big box store, it was the same issue. This neighborhood cannot support more traffic with the current urban planning that it has. You are already taking your lives into your hands trying to cross the street at the Penn Pine Shopping Center. Please don't bring any more big developments to this corner of Upper Darby. Thank you, Gwendolyn Dubois Shaw. End of comment.
Okay. How many more public comments are there?
2, 3, there's probably about 8 to 10.
Are there any that don't pertain to the Thompson Tract?
Hold on one second. Yes, there's 2 right here that are for a different area.
Can I get approval of council to so Thompson Tract, it's not before council. It's in all these comments and concerns really do need to go to the zoning board for the hearing, the special hearing on April 22nd. I would really love to hear the comments that have to do with a different issue.
I will advise you, Madam President, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We do have, I understand what you're trying to do, and everyone knows Thompson Tracts is of a lot of interest to folks in Upper Darby, and everyone understands that at least a lot of the public sentiment that's been expressed in the meetings has been negative. That being said, we have the half-hour limit on public comment. If we're going to exceed that, we can't discriminate and pick and choose which comments we're going to do. So if you want to exceed it, that's fine. You can make a motion to do that. If you don't want to exceed it and move on, you can do that as well. But we can't really cherry pick. That's all I recommend legally.
Okay. Thank you. Council, we have already exceeded it a bit. So it's kind of wanted to put it on you as far as what you wanted to do. Councilman Burke.
Thank you, President. Since we've already exceeded the time limit and there's 8 left and 2 of them don't pertain, I'd like to make a motion to extend it so we could hear not only the 6 that are left, but the other 2 that actually sent them in on time. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second to his motion?
I second that.
Okay, Councilman Wagner. All right, let me hold on. Let me get some paperwork thingy. So Burke. Wagner. Any question or concern on it? Seeing none. All those in favor of extending the public comment to the end, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name.
Madam President, this is Don
Thank you.
Bonnet. I must abstain
Abstain.
for reasons I've previously stated. I have a business relationship with the current owner of the property. I have nothing to do with this proposed development, but in the interest of avoiding any potential of a conflict of interest, I will continue to abstain, and I abstain on this motion.
Thank you.
President, can we do a roll call vote or no?
No one said no. No one said their name as a no.
That's why I want to do a roll call vote, because people are saying no when we're not hearing it. So if possible, can we do a roll call vote?
Sure. Ms. Billups, Councilwoman Billups, can you give us a roll call on it?
Yes, ma'am. Just have to pull my sheet up.
Excuse me, President Wentz. Since we've already exceeded the time, do we even have to vote?
We made a motion, we second it, so we have to.
I know, I'm just saying. I was going along with the solicitor.
We're rolling on it, so.
Okay.
Ms. Phillips, are you ready?
To pull my sheet up, Council President Wentz. I didn't print one out. I have to print it out. I mean, I know everybody by name, so I don't have to pull it out.
Go ahead, and I have a track sheet that I'm writing it on, so I'll share it with you.
Yep. Councilman Tunis?
No, because we receive all the public comment to our emails.
Okay. Councilwoman Billups is a no. Councilman Silva?
Yes.
Councilwoman Blackwell?
No.
Councilman Burke?
Yes.
Councilman Quinn? You're muted, Councilman Quinn.
You need to unmute yourself, Councilman Gwynn.
No.
Okay. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Feralia?
Yes.
Councilman Bonnet, I know you are,
I abstain.
yeah. Councilman Siddiq?
No.
Councilman Wagner?
Yes.
And Council President Wentz?
I'm a yes, but that makes us a tie, which would put it to the mayor.
We've got 11. How does it tie? Oh, he
Don
abstained.
Bennett is
Abstain.
an abstain. So Mayor Keffer?
Mayor Keffer? We have a tie.
You're muted.
Yeah, this is the first, actually, it might be in the whole history of Upper Darby Township. I'm gonna say no.
Okay. Okay. Can we make sure that all of council gets all the public comments so that we can respond to the ones we didn't hear tonight?
Yes, I believe we do that every meeting.
Well, I'll double check.
But yes, the answer to your question is yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Were of the two public comments, were any of them pertaining to an ordinance that's being discussed this evening?
No, we have
separated out already?
2 or 3 comments for the ordinance, but they're separate.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure we didn't mix the wrong ones, you know.
No.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Okay, so public comment is now closed. Thank you, Mayor Keffer, with your assistance on that. And also wanted to make sure that for everyone who commented on the Thompson track, to make sure that you send your questions and concerns to the zoning board hearing. The special meeting is for April 22nd at 7 p.m. So make sure that you reach out to the zoning board so that you can be a part of that meeting. Great. All right, so next up, we have the Honorable Mayor Barbara Ann Keffer.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It's 8:50 on Wednesday, March 17th. Happy St. Patrick's Day, if you're still watching. But I have a couple updates. On Sunday, this past Sunday, Delaware County held a mass vaccine clinic at Upper Darby High School, where 1,300 first doses of the COVID vaccine were administered. Thanks to Delaware County Emergency Services for their hard work, and Upper Darby School District for hosting. There were also a number of our council people and school board directors who volunteered for that day, and I wanted to thank them as well. I know that many people are frustrated by the lack of the vaccine availability and the difficulty in getting appointments. I understand and share your frustration. I have not been myself vaccinated yet, even with the first dose. So I especially want to thank Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, State Representative Margaret Davidson, State Representative Mike Zabel, our State Senator Tim Carney, and the county for their advocacy efforts to increase the number of vaccines distributed in our county. I want to also encourage anyone who is currently eligible for the vaccine and has not yet received it to reach out to the county for assistance in getting an appointment. For all the latest information regarding the vaccine process, please visit Delaware County's website, delcopa.gov/COVID, or contact the county COVID-19 call center at 484-276-2100. The Delaware County COVID call center's number is 484-276-2100. On Saturday, this Saturday, March 20th, we will hold an in-person meeting at 10:30 in the morning regarding the plans for the new Upper Darby Community Center. This will be held outdoors at 7,000 Walnut Street, the site of the future center and the site of the current Welcome Center. This will be another chance for the public to review the initial design and provide input on this very important project. If you are unable to join us on Saturday, but have suggestions or comments about the project, please email them to mayor@upperdarby.org. A week from today, on March 24th, I am hosting a virtual panel discussion in honor of Women's History Month. It'll be at 7:30 p.m. The theme of the panel discussion is mentors and models. And we have gathered a group of women that live in Upper Darby to discuss the impact of their mentors and role models and the impact that they've made on their lives, both personally and professionally. The featured panelists are Representative Margaret Davidson, NBC 10 Telemundo 62 reporter Stefania Jimenez, and residents Hiba Ali, Pam Burton, and Ramona Crosby. Please register for this event at upperdarby.org or call 610-734-7625 to register by phone. And questions for the panelists can be sent to mayor@upperdarby.org. In early April, the Darby Creek Valley Association's annual cleanup, it's the 38th annual cleanup. It will take place on Saturday, April 10th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. There are multiple sites in our township that need volunteers. So if you're interested in volunteering, and I hope that you are, please visit dcva.org/watershed-cleanups to register for a specific site. And the DCVA is also looking for people to serve as site captains. And there's other spots in our township that could use a little attention. Please contact Sue, S-U-E, DCVA@gmail.com if you're interested in captaining a new site. And lastly, we're providing a new service, weekly yard waste collection. And that will begin in our township starting on Monday, April 5th and continuing through Friday, November 19th. Yard waste will be collected weekly on residents' regularly scheduled recycling pickup day. Yard waste is defined as leaves, garden residues, shrubbery, tree trimmings, 4 inches or less in diameter and less than 3 feet long, and similar material. Please note that grass clippings are not considered yard waste. Please do not use plastic bags to collect your yard waste. Instead, place it in biodegradable paper bags, which are available at a couple of our local hardware stores, Burr Hill on Beaumont Road and the True Value on Marshall Road. And you can also get them at Home Depot or Lowe's if you choose. If you don't want to use the bags, please place your yard waste loosely in a trash can with no bags. So really excited to provide this year. I think it could really make a dent in the tipping fees that we pay to the county for our regular trash. And information on this is also on our township website, upperdarby.org. And I think I said enough. I want to keep it as short as possible. And thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor Keffer. I look forward to the yard waste collection. I will have yard waste for every single week. I have a tree that gives gifts all year round. So thank you. And can I somehow miss the date or the time of Saturday's meeting about the community center?
10:30.
10:30.
10:30 in the morning. Yep.
Oh, I wrote it down too. 10:30.
Great. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. That's great. Really excited about the community center as well. So on my behalf, as president of council, I just want to congratulate Deputy Fire Chief Brian Boyce on his retirement. Also wanted to congratulate to any and all township and police and fire department retirees that have retired over the year. Thank you very much for your service, as well as congratulate all township police and fire new employees or those who have been promoted. So I wanted to thank you all and welcome to our community. I also want to thank all of those who have volunteered for food distributions and community cleanups throughout our township. I know there's a lot of different ones outside of the one that the township has had, and the different cleanups in our area really makes a difference, especially now that the snow has melted. Also wanted to thank the county for bringing the pop-up vaccination clinic that the mayor did speak of to Upper Darby. It was an honor for myself and Councilwoman Billups to volunteer at the clinic. We will be back again when they come back in April. And also I wanted to thank State Senator Tim Carney for appointing me to the Local Government Advisory Committee. I'm honored to represent Upper Darby on this committee. So that's all that I have. So we're moving on to committee reports. Finance and Appropriations Committee co-chairs Councilman Gwynn and Silva, members Blackwell and Burke. And we're going to hop right into our treasurer's report and Mr. David Heyman. Take it away.
Good evening, Council President Wentz and Council, Mayor Keffer and your team. Going to be a quick one tonight. I don't have I like to do little educational things, but we've got so many balls in the air right now, and I need a little bit more a little bit more information than I have to be able to finish the projects I'm working on. So we'll hopefully come back with that next month. I gave my report to Council President Wentz earlier today, so I'm just going to read.
And I will send it out to council after tonight's meeting. I'm sorry, I did not see it in time to send it to you before the council meeting.
Oh, when I give it to you at 6:59, there's no way.
Right. So I apologize. I will send it out to you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So my report this evening is summarizing our financial condition as of February 28th, 2021. Reviews the revenues and expenses for the month, ending cash balances with performance comparison year over year to this period of time last year. Our current financial structure includes the spending plan for 4 government funds, namely the general fund, the sewer fund, the highway fund, and the sinking fund. On February 28th, 2021, our operating funds cash position stood at $7,563,841, which includes the $5 million from the bridge loan. Our cash position has increased to $2,169,412 year to date. February revenues were $5,030,907 with operating expenses of $4,617,812. This nets out to a $413,095 surplus for the month. When we compare the year-to-date results with the 2020 end of February, our revenues trail 2020 by about $640,000, while our year-to-date expenses are $2,745,955 below what those expenses were last January and February. On a percentage basis, we've collected 12.5% of our expected revenue for the year based on the budget and expended 12% of our operating budget. That's right in line with where we should be. At the same time in 2020, we had expended 15% of our operating budget while receiving 12.8% of the expected revenue. And then what I did was I attached a little ledger to the back of that with the supporting information. So that's it, nice and quick.
Great, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve the treasurer's report? Turn on your microphone. So that was Silva and Sadiq. Sorry, I misplaced my tracking sheet. Silva and Sadiq. Any questions for our treasurer? Seeing none. All those in favor, please turn your microphones on. Council members. So all those in favor of passing the treasurer's report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say your name. Ayes have it. Thank you very much, Treasurer Heyman. You rock. I will definitely forward your report on to everyone else this evening. Great. So next up, we have Planning, Zoning, and Building Code Committee, co-chairs Gwynn and Billups, members Bonnet and Tunis Jr. We have Resolution 1121. Solicitor Kilkenny, can you give us a brief on this resolution?
Sure, I'll be happy to, Madam President. And I believe we have the attorneys for the applicant on here, but I am going to go ahead and give a briefing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and read the therefore and resolve portions of the resolution. So prior to reporting the plan, the applicant shall address the comments and conditions contained in December 1st, 2020 engineer letter to the satisfaction of the engineer and meet those conditions. Prior to the reporting of the plan, the applicant shall address all applicable comments contained in a November 20th, 2020 Delaware County Planning Department review letter to the satisfaction of the township engineer. Prior to reporting the plan, the applicant shall address all applicable comments contained in the February 25th, 2021 Alfred Frederico Consulting LLC traffic review letter to the satisfaction of the township engineer. 4, the applicant should comply with the Upper Darby Township Zoning Hearing Board's decision of October 26, 2017 and November 21st, 2019, and all conditions imposed therein, and may obtain any additional zoning relief and time and extensions as necessary prior to the recording of the plan. 5, the applicant shall comply with all applicable consistent provisions of the township's prior approval resolution 2018. 6, applicant must obtain any necessary approvals and reviews from the township engineer, township traffic engineer, Delaware County Planning Department, Pennsylvania DEP, PennDOT, or any other necessary outside agency, and obtain any necessary planning modules, approvals, or permits before the plan is recorded. Applicant must complete all required easements and/or maintenance agreements and/or declarations, including but not limited to a stormwater management facility operation and maintenance agreement in form satisfactory to the township engineer and township solicitor prior to recording the plan. Applicant will provide all necessary legal descriptions for any necessary easements. 8, a revised recordable plan shall ultimately be submitted for township administrator review and approval that addresses all requests for further plan details, additions, corrections, and classifications set forth in the above mentioned review letters. 9, prior to recording the plan, the applicant shall execute a land development agreement and financial security agreement drafted by the township solicitor and post financial security in the form of a letter of credit in a form approved by the township solicitor. 10, all reasonable outstanding township fees, township engineering fees, and township legal fees, and any other professional fees associated with the review, approval, and plans shall be paid in full before the plan is recorded in accordance with the municipality's planning code. 11, applicants shall record new deeds for each new lot in association with the recording of the plan. 12, prior to recording the plan, applicant shall deposit a reasonable sum to be determined by the township engineer and a cash escrow township to be further described in the land development and financial security agreements for the reimbursements of the township's reasonable engineering, inspection, legal, and related administrative costs and expenses related to further reviews, inspections, and developments of the project. There are a series of waivers, which I will go through. So what I would recommend is after I go through them and read them, I would ask Mr. Galante to comment on them. I believe the engineer has commented on these and is going to be recommending approval, but he can explain those better to council if there are any questions related to that. The waivers are section 300-1, that the preliminary plan and final plan be considered separate submissions is hereby either approved or denied. Section 806C7, to allow a curb radius to be less than 5 feet in a parking area is hereby either approved or denied. 3, section 804A2, that driveways onto collector streets be located a minimum of 200 feet from the closest intersecting street is hereby approved or denied. Section 805A3, the maximum grade of any driveway within the right of way of any street shall be 4% is hereby approved or denied. Section 805C4, the non-residential driveways intersecting arterial trees shall be deep enough to allow for the stacking of a minimum of 3 cars is hereby either approved or denied. This resolution shall bind the applicant, and there is a series of signatures. And if, with your permission, Madam President, perhaps Mr. Galante can comment as to the waivers and his recommendations on them and field any questions from council.
Yes, thank you. That would be excellent. Go ahead, Mr. Galante.
Good evening. Yeah, just a brief overview of the waivers. If you remember at the previous council meeting, there were 2 additional waivers pertaining to landscaping. Since that meeting, I just want to give this quick background. Since that meeting, the applicant has updated their plans to comply with the landscaping waivers and actually have an updated rendering if council wishes to see it. I believe it was circulated to council prior to the meeting, but if not, I can get a copy. Essentially what the developer did is planted additional trees on the property to eliminate the need for 2 of the landscape waivers that were discussed at the last meeting. But as far as the waivers that are in front of you this evening, the first waiver, preliminary final land development, we take no exception to that. They're basically just submitting it as one submission, and this is an amended plan, so we take no exception. The second waiver pertaining to the radius of the the curb, the 5-foot curb radius. There's an island on the site. The only way you could achieve the construction of the island is to have a smaller than a 5-foot radius. We do not take an exception to that. And then there was the 3 other waivers which were granted previously that have to deal with driveways on collector streets, maximum grade at the driveway. And I know Solicitor Kilkenny read, and I'm reading it too, non-residential driveways intersecting arterial streets, it should read, shall be deep enough to allow stacking for 3 cars. We're supportive of that waiver as well, since it was already granted and the improvements are already done out on the state highway, and there's really not much you can do with the access at this point. But we support the waivers and we take no exception. I don't know if the applicant has anything they want to add.
Yeah, this is Mark D'Amico on behalf of the applicant. Good evening. May it please the board. On behalf of the applicant, I can say that we were given an opportunity to review and comment on the resolution, and the resolution, as Mr. Kilkenny just read it, is acceptable to the applicant.
Great. Does council members have any questions in reference to the waivers? Okay. Are you Solicitor Kilkenny, are you good with your brief of the?
I am.
Basically, right. Okay, great. So at this point in time, council, can we get a motion to approve resolution 11-21?
And the waivers.
And all of the waivers, yes, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
I'd like to make a second it.
Gwen and Sadiq. Okay, are there any questions from council on any of this resolution or waivers? Okay, I'm seeing, yes,
This is
Councilman.
a quick question. This is to Mr. Galante. With regards to the first 10 or 12 items listed, how do things stand there? Is everything proceeding according to your satisfaction?
Yeah, we've discussed the comment letter with the applicant and their engineers, and we don't see a problem with them satisfying the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of passing resolution 11-21 and all of its waivers, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Members, you got to turn on your mics. So signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say your name. Okay, ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. So next up, we have resolution 13-21 for the final land development for Fern Boulevard. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief on that?
All right. Thank you, President Wentz. This is a land development. This has come in front of the board before. This is for Fern Boulevard in Drexel Hill. It is a C1 traditional neighborhood commercial zoning district. And I can give you the final land development approval conditions. Now therefore be resolved by the Upper Darby Township Council that the plan is hereby granted final land development plan approval subject to the satisfaction of the following conditions. 1, prior to the reporting of the plan, applicants shall address the comments and conditions contained in the September 29th, 2020 MG engineering review letter to the satisfaction of the township engineer. 2, prior to the plan, applicants shall address all applicable comments contained in the September 17th, 2020 Delaware County Planning Department review letter to the satisfaction of the township engineer. 3, applicants shall comply with the Upper Darby Township Zoning Hearing Board's December 19th, 2019 decision, application 1110 of 19, and all conditions imposed therein, and obtain any additional zoning relief and time extensions as necessary prior to recording the plan. 4, applicant must obtain any necessary approvals and reviews from the township engineer, township traffic engineer, Delaware County Planning Department, Pennsylvania DEP, PennDOT, or any other necessary outside agency, and obtain any necessary planning modules, approvals, or permits for the plan is recorded. 5, applicant must complete all required easements and/or maintenance agreements or declarations, including but not limited to a stormwater management facility operation and maintenance agreement in form satisfactory to the township engineer and township solicitor prior to recording of the plan. Applicant will provide all necessary legal descriptions for any necessary easements. Number 6, a revised recordable plan shall be ultimately submitted for township administrative review and approval that addresses all requests for further plan details, additions, corrections, and clarifications set forth in the above mentioned review letters. Prior to recording the plan, applicant shall execute a land development agreement and financial security agreement drafted by the township solicitor and post financial security in the form of a letter of credit, tri-party agreement / set aside account, or cash escrow in a form approved by the township solicitor. All reasonable outstanding township fees, township's engineering fees, and township legal fees, and any other professional fees associated with the review and approval of the application and plan shall be paid in full before the plan is recorded in accordance with the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. Number 9, prior to the recording of the plan, prior to the recording of the plan, applicant shall deposit a reasonable sum to be determined by the township engineer in a cash escrow with the township as to be further described in the land development and financial security agreements for the reimbursement of the township's reasonable engineering, inspection, legal, and related administrative costs and expenses related to the further reviews, inspections, and development of the project. Council President Wentz, there are 2 waivers, and at your pleasure, if Mr. Galante would like to explain them in detail. The first waiver is a waiver to section 300.1 that the preliminary and final plan be considered separate submissions is hereby approved or denied. Number 2, section 806.c.7 to allow a curb radius of less than 5 feet in a parking area is hereby approved or denied. So ends the reading.
Great, thank you. Mr. Galante, can you give us, I know we talked about these at the last meeting. Can you give us a little refresher on them?
Yeah, there were 2 waivers that the applicant is requesting. One, preliminary final submission waiver, which is the typical waiver that we grant for this development. We take no exception. And the other one is the applicant, in order to add some additional landscape islands in the parking area, they needed to make sure they needed to have some of their landscape islands with less than a 5-foot curb radii, which of course we take no exception to. And you know, the waivers are acceptable in our opinion. I will note too that both of the projects, I should have mentioned this, that both projects went to the planning committee. We don't have a commission formed at this time, but both projects and the developers presented their projects to the planning committee, and they were looked upon favorable at the meeting. So
Great.
Just something for council to note.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Resolution, sorry, 13. Can we get a motion to approve resolution 13-20?
So moved.
I'd like to make a motion.
So Ms. Blackwell, and Gwen second it.
And Madam President, just to clarify, this is approval of the resolution, all the waivers contained therein.
Yes.
Yes, I was just about to clarify that. Yes, thank you. Yes, land development and waivers too. Yes, definitely. Are there any questions or concerns on resolution 13-21 or the waivers themselves? Councilman Gwynn.
Just as again, a quick comment to Mr. Galante, just wanted to confirm you reviewed the 9 leading items which require approval and funding, et cetera, and everything stands as it should or appropriately now.
Yes, and we've been working with the developers on the line and working closely together because we have a streetscape project on that block. So the developer's been more than happy to work with us, and also the plans have been above board.
Okay.
So we're happy with.
And
all
you're
those.
monitoring it on an ongoing basis. So
Yes, I am. Yes.
thank you.
Well, also want to clarify that of all the plans we've seen on land development side of the equation, this one was the most green, especially for a parking lot, than any of the other land developments we've had. So I just want to point that out, as an abstract. Okay. Any other council members have any questions or concerns on this resolution and its waivers? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of passing resolution 13-21 and its waivers, please signify by saying aye, but you have to turn your microphones on.
Aye.
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 Okay. Anyone who's a nay, please say your name. All right. Ayes have it. Was there a nay? Okay, I don't think so. All right, great, thank you. So next up, we have, we have, yeah, I'm getting there, sorry. Law and Government and Rules and Procedures Committee, co-chairs Phillips and Silva, members Siddiq and Blackwell. Solicitor Kilkenny, can you give us a brief on resolution 12-21?
Sure. Hold on a second. Yep. 12-21. Yep. We discussed this last time at the committee meeting, dealt with our the record retention policy. Mentioned that this was a statewide law that we're just following, and a good government practice as far as preventing clutter in Upper Darby Township. So now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of Upper Darby, in accordance with the above cited municipal records manual, hereby authorizes the disposition of the following public records: the oath of office of the mayor and council members prior to 2014, 2, financial disclosures ethics forms from elected officials and candidates prior to 2015, adopted and resolved today in council chambers, and has our signature blocks. That concludes my reading, Madam President.
Great, thank you very much. At this point in time, can we get a motion to approve resolution 12-21?
So moved.
Phillips?
Second.
Blackwell. Phillips. Blackwell. Are there any questions and concerns on this resolution? I'm seeing none. All those in favor of resolution 12-21, please signify by saying aye. Turn your
Aye.
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 Aye. Councilman Tunis and Faralia, I didn't see your mics come on, so I just want to make sure.
Sorry, aye.
Faralia?
Sorry, Laura.
All good. Are you do you support it?
Yes.
Awesome. Are there any nays? Say your name. Great, thank you. Ayes have it. Okay. Next up, we have a public hearing on ordinance number 3093. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief on this ordinance before our public hearing? Oh, shoot, we lost her for a second.
We're not hearing you. Yeah.
She was missing for a second.
Oh.
So she just hopped back on. Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief on ordinance number 3093, the repeal of the materials?
Sure. So, President Wentz, this was a ordinance that was discussed at our last meeting. And the conversation was specifically referring to there was a ordinance passed in 1987 that regulated the sale, rental, distribution, exhibition, publication, lending, and giving away of or showing of obscene and other sexual material. The ordinance included reference to physical sexual conduct, which included homosexuality as, quote, a patently offensive representation. Council finds that this language is not representative of its views, is patently offensive to the LGBTQIA+ community and the Upper Darby community as a whole, and violative of the township's quest towards full diversity and inclusion. Now, therefore, be it enacted and ordained, Upper Darby Township repeals this this ordinance is repealed as follows. Section 1, Upper Darby Township Ordinance 2693 is hereby repealed in its entirety. The Code of Ordinances of the Township shall be amended to reflect the repeal of Ordinance 2693. Section 2, Township Administration is hereby authorized to take any and all actions necessary to properly nullify any and all actions which were taken in accordance with this ordinance. There's repealer, severability clause, and it's effective immediately. So ends the reading. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, can we get Ms. Chiquita? Hopefully I said her name right. Trying. Do we have public comments for, I'd like to officially open the public hearing for ordinance number 3093. That's it.
We have comments.
We do?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Go forth with the comments.
Bart Eberts, 7543 Parkview Road. I'd first like to thank the administration for moving Upper Darby's codes and ordinances online, where residents can freely access them without having to go through a request process. Without this option, I may never have come across the discriminatory ordinance from 1987 that will be under consideration at tonight's meeting. As written, Ordinance 2693 makes the display of a same-sex couple holding hands illegal, and perhaps even worse, describes simply existing as an LGBTQ plus person an explicit act. I urge council to act now with bipartisan resolve to remove this discriminatory ordinance showing Upper Darby is the LGBTQ plus affirming and welcoming community the mayor and many on council have claimed. However, even if this ordinance is repealed, the same language remains in Title 18 of the Pennsylvania statutes, where the Upper Darby ordinance's language presumably is based. Therefore, I urge council members to go further and urge state representatives Davidson and Zabel and Senator Carney to work to overturn the homophobic statute at the state level as well. Thank you. End of comment.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that state statute?
Title 18 of the Pennsylvania statute?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And is there any other comments?
There are.
Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me. Kyle McIntyre, 1040 Drexel Avenue. Upper Darby Township Council must amend Chapter 385 of the Upper Darby Township Code, obscene materials, because it currently lists homosexuality as an obscene material and is therefore banned. It currently bans homosexuality in any literature, including any book, magazine, pamphlet, newspaper, story paper, comic book, or writing, and any device, figure, visual representation, or image, including any drawing, photograph, video cassette or motion picture as obscene and prohibited. This is clearly an old code and requires updating, as homosexuality is not considered obscene and is in fact extremely homophobic and offensive. I stand with any efforts to take a stand on overturning this rule. This is an antiquated and offensive relic left over from much older codes. However, a simple code like this, if left on the books, opens the door for it to be construed and used against allies and the LGBTQ plus community. End of comment.
Thank you. And next,
Damian Moore Savage, 7112 Pennorth Avenue. I am writing in support of the repeal of Ordinance 2693, which equates to supporting Ordinance 3093, its formal repeal. Beyond the fact that state law already addresses obscene and other sexual materials and performances, even in consideration of the circumstances of the 80s, it is beyond the pale that such an ordinance went unchecked for as long as it did. The township historically had challenges with ease of access of information in the past, and I can promise you prior to codification. There is no way anyone would have had the impetus or desire to go through volumes of antiquated paperwork to uncover this unless they knew it was in there to begin with. And for those that knew of the ordinance's existence but made no effort to undo the deed or somehow explain its utility, that's a moment of meditation and reflection they should consider individually. One would be correct in assuming that they shouldn't have to worry about such devil in the details items, as our elected and appointed officials are to have our best interests at heart, and indeed as their priority for as long as they are on the job. And I have enjoyed, as a first-time elected official on the school board side of things, as the first openly LGBTQ plus person of color elected in this township's history, being your devoted local governing partner, providing solutions to people we don't just identify as constituents and stakeholders, but also as neighbors, fellow community members, and friends, facing challenges together and learning from one another, raising the bar of excellence and what it means to not just hear a concern, but actively listen and be able to provide actionable steps for continued and sustained progress, being humble when our community is teaching us valuable lessons to be learned so that we all have equal opportunities to thrive in this awesome town. Having read the original ordinance to my husband and mom, it's safe to say that my household was passionately angry that passive LGBTQ plus discrimination was willfully written into our guiding documents of governance. By just writing about it or even repealing a crap ordinance isn't enough. If this pandemic and reckoning with racial and ethnic equity this past year or so has taught us anything, it's that we need to commit to equity in all forms and follow that faith up with good works that demonstrate our elevation of this conversation to why did these people write this horrible law and I want an apology, to we understand our history and are taking concrete steps to prevent discrimination in this form from taking hold here ever again. End of comment.
thank you. Are there any other comments?
There is another one.
Okay.
Laurie Pollock, 205 East Greenwood Avenue. I am a resident of Upper Darby and am writing to ask that the language of a section of the Upper Darby Township Code be altered. Section Chapter 385 relates to commercial distribution of obscene materials and states, the council hereby declares such activities to be illegal as hereinafter set forth, and further that such activities are hereby declared to be and constitute a public nuisance. Section 385-B entitled Physical Sexual Conduct includes in the list of offensive references homosexuality. I feel that the inclusion of the word homosexuality is objectionable and ask that this word be removed from this clause for the following reasons. Number one, homosexuality refers to an identity, not an act, and does not belong in the passage which relates to depiction of specific sexual acts. Number 2, the presence of this word stigmatizes an entire group of people. Number 3, as currently written, such depictions as gay youth attending a family-friendly gay pride event with their parents, worshipers at an LGBTQ plus church, pictures of any individuals known to be gay or lesbian at any event could be labeled as obscene and prosecuted. Number 4, I and my wife got married in Upper Darby Municipal Court on June 5th, 2014, have lived here since 1992, and have the right to be and feel welcome and safe in our township. I therefore ask that this word be removed from section 385-B. End of comment. And that is the end of public comment.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank everyone who wrote in their comments. For those who didn't realize, the purpose of ordinance number 3093 is to repeal the previous ordinance 2693 and completely remove it from our laws within the township, thusly removing its offensiveness from the township. And as per to the request to reaching out to others to help to remove the wording from the Pennsylvania crime code. I personally did reach out to friends of mine within the union LGBTQ plus community for Pride at Work, and I have gotten connected with other groups that are looking at statewide laws that are discriminatory in nature to make sure certain words are removed. So this is one of the laws that they're putting under their perspective of looking into. So I just wanted to let them know that. So at this point in time, we're going to close the public hearing on ordinance number 3093. And can we get a motion from council to approve ordinance number 3093?
I'd like to make a motion.
Councilman Gwynn,
I'd like to second that motion.
and that's a Sadiq and Silva second. Right, Sadiq, was that right?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I think Sadiq beat me there, but yeah.
He did, so, but I'm putting you both in. Okay, are there any questions or concerns on this ordinance? Councilman Gwynn?
Just as a quick question relative to it, I looked at the wording and I think most of this is referring to like print items, but it would also include electronic distribution of it.
It's repealing the entire ordinance.
Okay.
So ordinance number 2693 would not exist at all.
Okay.
Elimination. Scratch it off the list. Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Seeing none. Ms. Phillips, can you give us a roll call vote?
Sure. Councilman Tunis,
Yes.
Councilman Silva,
Yes.
Councilwoman Billups is a yes. Councilwoman Blackwell,
Yes.
Councilman Gwynn,
Yes.
Councilman Burke,
Yes.
Councilman Sadiq,
Yes.
Councilwoman Faralia, I'm sorry.
All right, yes.
Councilman Wagner,
Yes.
Councilman Barnett,
Yes.
and Council President Wentz.
Yes.
I know I went out of order. Sorry about that.
It's okay. It's all good. Great. Thank you to council for appealing this horrific ordinance. Greatly appreciate, and I'm sure a lot of our residents do as well. So thank you so much. And thank you to our solicitors, especially Solicitor Richardson, for working your magic to make that happen in such a timely fashion. Mentioned it one day and voila, by the next day she was rocking it out. So I greatly appreciate you. So next up, we have resolution number 1421, an adjustment to our Upper Darby Civil Service Code. Can Solicitor Kilkenny give us a reading of this resolution?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Let me pull it up. Okay. Now therefore be it resolved by Upper Darby Township Council, Article 4, applications of the Civil Service Code shall be amended subject to the Upper Darby Civil Service Commission taking action pursuant to Section 206 of the Civil Service Code and is hereby adopted and resolved by authority of the same. Section 402 of the Code. Section 402 of the Civil Service Code shall be amended as follows. Police officers shall be no less than the minimum age of 21 years to be sworn into active service. No candidate for police officer shall be eligible to take examination as provided herein unless each candidate shall obtain a minimum age of 21 years within 60 days following the date said examination is given. Firefighters shall be no less than the minimum age of 18 years to be sworn into active service. No candidate for firefighter shall be eligible to take the examination as provided herein unless such candidate will attain the minimum age of 18 years within 60 days following the said date examination is given. Section 402 of the Code. Sections 402C1, 2, 3, and 4 of the Civil Service Code is currently drafted shall be amended by deleting the sections 402C1, 2, and 3, and 4 of the Civil Service Code as currently drafted and replacing those provisions with the following. Applicants for the position of police officer shall possess all the qualifications for admission to a municipal police academy. Applicants are not required to possess Act 120 certification. Notwithstanding the foregoing, when the discretion of the administration, the fiscal help of the township so requires, or when no Commonwealth approved municipal police academies are available within a reasonable period of time or within a reasonable geographical distance from the township's municipal building, the commissioner may require that all applicants possess Act 120 certifications. The requirements stated in 402C1 and 2 of the Civil Service Code prior to the amendment shall no longer be applicable. Section 506A of the Code. Section 506A of the Civil Service Code shall be amended as follows. Police officers shall be no less than a minimum of 21 years to be sworn into active service. No candidate for police officer shall be eligible to take the examination as provided herein unless such candidate will attain the minimum age of 21 within 60 days following the date said examination is given. Firefighters shall be no less than the minimum age of 18 years to be sworn into active service. No candidate for firefighter shall be eligible to take the examination as provided herein unless such candidate will attain the minimum age of 18 years within 60 days following the date an examination is given. Section 506C of the Code. Section 506C6 of the Civil Service Code shall be amended by adding the following section, 506(9). Possess all the qualifications for admission to a Pennsylvania Municipal Police Academy. Applicants are not required to possess the Act 120 certification. Notwithstanding the foregoing, when at the discretion of the mayor and council, the fiscal help of the township so requires, or when no Commonwealth approved municipal police academy classes are available within a reasonable period of time or within a reasonable geographical distance from the township's municipal building, the commission will require that all applicants possess current Act 120 certification. Section 703 of the Code. Section 703B of the Civil Service Code shall be amended to provide only in those instances when the needs for promotions of the position of lieutenant cannot be fulfilled because there are no potential candidates who meet the current requirement that all candidates have 2 years of ranking service as a sergeant in order to be eligible to test for the position of lieutenant, the requirement for 2 years of ranking service as a sergeant shall be changed to 1 year of service as a sergeant. In all other instances, the current requirement that an officer must have 2 years of ranking service as a sergeant to test for the position of lieutenant shall remain in full force and apply. Section 704 of the code. Section 704B of the Civil Service Code shall be amended, adding the following. In cases where applicants on the eligibility list for new officers have a tied score, the following tie-breaking criteria shall apply. A, police officer candidates in order of priority. 1, veteran status. 2, written score. 3, alphabetical by last name. B, promotional score in order of priority. 1, written score. 2, time in service. 3, number on new hire or promotional list. There's a severability clause. There's a repealer clause. There has been an effective date. My understanding is this has already been approved by the Civil Service Commission. It has been forwarded to us by their solicitor. We put this in resolution form. My understanding is it has been discussed within committee, although not wasn't ready in time for the committee of the whole meeting. I believe this has the full support of the superintendent and Chief Sawyer on all of these changes. Many of them are cleaning up housekeeping issues, but others are making service in the Upper Darby Police Department and Fire Department more accessible to a more diverse workforce and not requiring an extreme outlay of money, meaning that they go through the police academy before even being eligible to be hired. That sums up some of the changes. I believe Mr. Rangione, CAO, was also involved heavily in the drafting of these, may be able to comment as to some of the policy behind them.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have Superintendent Bernhardt and Chief Sawyer as well, if there are any questions.
Right. So I'd like to thank Superintendent Bernhardt and Chief Sawyer for joining us this evening. We greatly appreciate having you here. Before we can get on to that part of the equation, I'd like to, Council, we need a motion to approve resolution 14-21 before we get into our conversation about it. So can we get a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Sadiq and
Councilwoman Blackwell.
Blackwell were the loudest. So it means other council members, you gotta get louder and faster because these two are rocking it out, you know, so.
I was a little slow.
Yes, yeah, I saw your hand and I heard Councilman Silva too, but the other two were faster and louder, so. Okay, so at this point in time, any questions and concerns on this resolution? I know that we did not get a chance to discuss it in our committee meeting this month because the resolution wasn't ready in time, so I expect questions. So Councilman Gwynn?
I would just like to hear from both Superintendent Bernhardt as well as Chief Sawyer, how this will impact and improve their situation in their group areas.
Okay. Superintendent Bernhardt?
I can go first. Who you want to go first?
Go ahead, Chief Sawyer.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity, Council President. This improves the situation for me as the fire department because what it does, it increases my pool of applicants. So for the most part, when you have a entry-level job and you're saying you have to be 21 years of age, it reduces my pool where I can't recruit at the high school level and I can't start off going to the neighborhoods and the churches to recruit members. The other issue is one of the requirements was they already had to be part of a volunteer organization. And this is an entry-level job. We're going to send them to the fire academy for training. So there's no reason whatsoever that we should be requiring them to have the training that we're going to send them for in the first, in the long run. So again, it opens up my applicant pool. It allows me to do a couple of things in reference to the recruitment process and making sure that I have a bigger pool to reach to.
Thank you. Superintendent Bernhardt?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Councilman Gwynn, to answer your question, kind of like what Chief Sawyer said, for us, the police department, by now going back and lifting that Act 120 and not requiring that, that allows us a larger pool of applicants to apply for the police department, that we can get a more diverse and wide group of men and women that can apply, that don't have that burden of having to already go into the police academy.
Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other council members have a question?
Yes.
Councilwoman Blackwell?
Can the Act 21 be clarified what it is actually? I believe it's just an act to carry a gun and have rights to that, just so that the constituents know what that means.
Yeah, it's about the training. It's a training. It's
the police academy.
Yeah.
It's the state law talking about the police academy. Superintendent Bernhardt can comment on it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yes, so Councilwoman, that is correct. So it's Municipal Police Academy. It's referred to as Act 120, and that is a requirement that any police officer has to have before they can be sworn.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none. Wow. All right. Well, thank you very much for all of your hard work on this, finding ways to diversify our police force and our fire department. That is really important to all of us. So we greatly appreciate all your hard work. So at this point in time, council members, turn on your microphones. All those in favor of resolution 1421, please signify by saying aye.
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 And if you're opposed, please say your name. All right, so the ayes have it. It's a resolution. I heard no names. So that tells me everyone's in support of it.
There's no requirement for roll call unless somebody asks for one when it deals with a resolution. So I don't believe anybody asked for one.
Okay. Great. So resolution 14-21 passes. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us for that. That's all done. So next up, we have the Finance and Appropriations Committee co-chairs Gwynn and Silva, members Blackwell and Burke. We have a public hearing on ordinance number 3094. And Solicitor Richardson, can you give us a brief on this ordinance?
Thank you, President Wentz. This is an ordinance for vehicle impoundment and towing. Initially, the previous ordinance only had that the police department had authorization to tow and impound. This ordinance adopts and amends that it is the Department of License and Inspection and the Upper Darby Police Department. Now, therefore, the definitions are changed as used in this article. 532-2, the following terms shall be added and have the meanings indicated. Department, the Upper Darby Police Department or Department of License and Inspection. Section 2, records shall be amended as follows. The department shall keep a record of the following, and other proceedings shall be listed to be amended to just the department. There's a repealer and severability clause, and the effective date is immediate. So ends the reading.
Great, thank you. At this point in time, can we open the public hearing for ordinance number 3094? Ms. Chiquita?
Council President Wentz, there are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that there are no public comments for our public hearing, the public hearing is officially closed. At this point in time, can I get a motion to approve ordinance number 3094?
So moved.
So move.
Nguyen
Second it.
and Tunis. Nguyen and Tunis. Great. Are there any questions or concerns on ordinance 3094? Councilwoman Billups?
Yeah, I have a question, Council President Wentz. So if I'm understanding you, Councilor Richardson, this resolution or ordinance, this is in the police department and L&I will both impound and remove the cars?
Correct. So as
Okay.
it stands right now, the police is the only township department that's able to do so. In the property maintenance code, across basically any municipality that has a property maintenance code, has the ability for L&I to do so also. If there's an abandoned car that's just sitting there, it's not necessarily the purview of the police, but it would be the purview of the license and inspection.
So if so if there's a car that's been sitting in my neighborhood for months, I call L&I.
I don't know. I believe
you call the request line.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I call the request line. And they forward it to L&I to remove the car.
Well, Mayor Keffer wants to weigh in.
Okay.
So just to weigh in, I want to thank Superintendent Hart for staying on the meeting, because I had asked him earlier to explain the difference between the purview of the police department versus what this ordinance would create, right? There is a difference between who's parked on a street and who's parked in a private area. And Chief Bernhardt, if you could help explain that, that would be great.
Yep, absolutely, Mayor. So Councilwoman Billups, to kind of simplify the question you had, you would still go ahead and, like Councilwoman Wentz had said, call the tip line, or if someone were to call 911 and report an abandoned vehicle. This now allows L&I to go onto properties, whereas the past with the police officer, if there was a car in the backyard or in the fence yard, that would be an area where we need a search warrant to actually go back there. So this helps us, along with L&I, to be able to go on those properties and issue the abandoned vehicle or any ordinance violations that the township has, that they could enforce those as well. So
Okay.
it now allows the two of us to partner together to handle all types of abandoned vehicles.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, Councilman Gwynn.
Yes, I looked, am I on? Yeah. I looked at the listing of items that are required to be maintained. Is there a common database that would show if L&I picked it up, it's there, or L&I enters it onto the police listing that they have with all this information? Or how does that work? Or how do you plan it to work?
So currently, Councilman Gwynn, I've been working with the mayor and Vince Rangione, as well as Chris McSween from the Health and License Inspection. We put a spreadsheet together, and we went back a few months into 2020 and 2021. Any vehicle that's been called in, whether it be via the tip line or just 911 or the police department, we're tracking that on the spreadsheet. When we received the notification, the type of car, where it was, the property, and I'm sharing that now. We're sharing that monthly. So we'll be able to, anyone within that department will be able to look in the spreadsheet and say, hey, Timmy Bernhardt from X, Y, and Z Street called in about a tan car, and this was done, who did it, and where it's at in the process. So we'll be able to track that.
So you as the police department will have access 24 hours a day to identify the disposition of that vehicle when that person's trying to find out what happened to my car.
Yes. So when we get the complaint or the information, we'll put it in, and then we'll follow up with what we did, where we're at in the process, and if it was towed, if the homeowner met the requirements or the person met the requirements, or if it was L&I that handled it. So we'll be able to track that.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Councilman Sadiq.
Yeah, once you put the abandoned sticker, how many days we wait to see the car if the owner remove the vehicle?
So
and then once we tow it, is it third party towing or the township towing? And after the towing, how long we keep that car in the parking lot?
So I'll try and start with the beginning. I think I remember all your questions. It's between 6 and 10 days. Once the sticker goes on there, we give a little grace period there to make sure everything was filed, the information was received, and we follow back up to see if they were able to get it inspected or registered or whatever the problem may be. And then the vehicle is towed. It's towed by one of the 2 tow companies that we have within the township, and it's towed to one of their facilities, one of their yards. And I think you had a third one there. I'm sorry. What was the third one? I don't think I got
Third
that.
one, like about how long we keep that car for the auction, or what did you do with this car, vehicles?
That would be up to those 2 independents, how long they keep it. I'm not sure of that. I could find that information out for you as far as the 2 tow companies, how long they keep it in their yard. But the information, the homeowner would get the information of where it was towed to, and then they could go to that tow yard to get the vehicle if they wished.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you for serving our great township of Upper Darby.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing none. Everyone turn on your microphones, and Councilwoman Billups, please give us a roll call vote.
Sure. I printed out this time.
All right.
Councilor Tunis,
Yes.
Councilwoman Billups is a yes. Councilor Silva,
Yes.
Councilor Blackwell,
Yes.
Councilor Gwynn,
Yes.
Councilor Burke,
Yes.
Councilor Sadiq,
Yes.
Councilor Faralia,
Yes.
Councilor Barnett,
Yes.
Councilor Wagner,
Yes.
and Council President Wentz.
Yes. Awesome. That's another unanimous vote.
Yes,
Way to go,
ma'am.
council. Okay. Next up, sisters, can you give us an update?
Sure, I'll be happy to give an update. Obviously, our firm was busy these last couple weeks. As you saw, we worked diligently on the Wawa resolution, or other resolution for Fern Road, updating the Civil Service Commission rules, as well as Ms. Richardson working on very voluminous right to know requests, as she does for Upper Darby and all our firm clients. One of the things that we'll be working on coming of this is we will be representing the property maintenance code. Not that there were any changes, but what happened is when the codification happened, we adopted it right around the time of the codification. It didn't make it into the codification, so we have to make sure it's reenacted. So that's one of the things that we're working on currently, and you'll be seeing in upcoming weeks. That concludes my solicitor's report, subject to any of your questions.
Great, thank you. Councilman Gwynn?
Yeah, I thought I'd ask what the status might be with regards to St. Eugene's.
St. Eugene's, so I believe Ms. Richardson was in touch with Coyle, the appraiser, earlier this week. They have said they'll get it to us by next week. Without the appraisal, we can't move forward. Mr. McBlain is aware of the situation.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Old business? Anyone have some old business?
I'm sorry,
Councilman-
Laura. I was too slow again. I was just going to ask about if there was any update about Pannoni and the work on the Whalen tract or the Whalen property.
Whalen property. Okay.
I'm not. Courtney, are you aware of any update on that? Or Vince, I'm not. Yeah.
It's Mike. Mike.
Yeah, that's
Mike.
Yeah, Mike Galante.
Mike. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the stabilization work's been completed, and we monitor to make sure that all the grass grows in and we get vegetation on the slope. So, as you know, they completed late November last year. So they weren't able to get total stabilization on the slope. So we monitor it. I don't know if it's fully stabilized yet, but I plan to go out there sometime in the upcoming weeks and I'll have a better idea of if the slope is fully stabilized. And then there are some remaining punch list items which we're working on with the developer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. If Ms. Chiquita can come back, sorry, Councilman Siddiq, we discovered we missed 2 public comments, one for each of the ordinances. So I just wanted to make sure that we get a chance to read it into our record. So go ahead.
My apologies, I didn't print out the last page. So, okay, we have one more comment. It's Joe Clark and Sadie Thomas, 75 Houston Road. We are writing in support of Ordinance 3093, which is meant to replace previous Ordinance 2693. The previous ordinance contains language that is unfair to our LGBTQ+ community, language that should never have been included and should be removed from any and all ordinances and resolutions. We also have a question regarding Ordinance 3094. Will this ordinance authorize L&I to tow or impound personal vehicles off of private property without notice to the vehicle and/or property owner? Thank you, the Clark family. End of comment.
Okay, thank you. So I believe Superintendent Bernhardt clarified the property scenario when he answered it earlier. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was distracted in the last few minutes. It was because I was getting a message from the Clark family of concern that we had missed their comment. So I wanted to make sure we got it onto our council record. So, yeah. Okay. And then Councilman Siddiq, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I would like to ask our engineer, Mr. Galante, that on the Cardington field, I think the job is done, but a lot of rocks and stones is still over there, and they don't completely clean up there. And also the sidewalk, I think they have a space in between sidewalk and the field. I think they want to fill up with the dirt, and it's not filled up yet. So it is dangerous when people walking, they might strip in there. So any update for that one? The contractor, can that finish the job, complete the job?
Yeah, so yes, we reached out to the contractor. Now that the weather broke, they have to complete the asphalt restoration and then any grass restoration required as part of that project. They were unable to complete the remaining punch list items due to the weather, but now that the weather is breaking, we're going to get them out there to finish up.
Sure, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other old business?
Yeah.
Councilman Gwynn?
Yeah, I had received a request from Mr. Francis Click, excuse me, with regards to Owen Avenue and what the status might be there. I didn't know if, Mike, if you had any further updates from PennDOT with regards to the no left turn, and also for the barrier island at the edge, so the traffic can't make a wrong turn. And also he questioned, will we be able to get that third speed hump put in?
All right, so couple questions there regarding the no left turn coming up toward Garrett. We submitted the documentation to PennDOT. PennDOT reviewed the documentation, and they did not have any objection to that no left, to restricting the left turn. We had, as you know, anytime you want to restrict the turn movement on the state roadway, you're required to submit a request to PennDOT, or so that they can approve it. Regarding the concrete island, we were required to get a highway occupancy permit from PennDOT for that. There was one remaining item left, which is to coordinate with the adjacent property owner, which happens to be Dr. Benedetto. Reached out to Dr. Benedetto, sent him the plan, make sure he's okay with it. Once he gets back to me, then we can get our HOP permit, and we plan on using our Public Works construction crews to construct the concrete island to further prohibit or reduce the potential for people making that illegal left turn. Regarding the third speed hump, we put the traffic recorder out there, which monitors the speeds. And we have not seen in between the speed hump areas an increase in speeds. The speeds were ranging between around 15 to 25 miles an hour. However, we are just recently put the counter on the hill at Owen Avenue. And once we get that data, I'll gladly share it with yourself and council if they want to take a look at it, because that's where I think the majority of the speeding would be happening right now is on the hill. So the hope is that the idea is that once we put the island in, we have a gateway treatment, which will then deter people, motorists from speeding down the roadway.
Yeah.
I just want to say real quickly that I know for the residents of Owen Avenue, this feels like a really prolongated process. My administration has been in office for about a few months, and Owen Avenue, we consider this a pilot project for speed humps. And not that they're going to go everywhere, even if everybody wants them on their street, right? There's a process. We need speed, Mike, I don't know what the speed tables or speed tests, and we have to know the width of the street, the slope, and all this kind of stuff. So be happening quick enough for the people that live on Owen Avenue. But we appreciate your patience and we welcome your questions, and we're going to work through this, but we want to make sure that we do it right. We're going kind of slow and steady. So, and Mike's done a lot of great work on this, so I want to thank him.
Yes, I'd like to thank him as well. I appreciate your efforts in it. I did have a couple other minor questions to follow up on. On a similar note, I think we were looking to have a flashing sign up for Beverly Hills Middle School on Garrett Road that we talking about. I know that Mr. Martin was getting information together to submit to the state again. So just following up on that, and of course the status of the other tests we're going to do in terms of speed on the various other streets that were all previously submitted. I know they're in your queue, but I just will again ask.
Sure. Well, so here, Mike, I'm sorry. I'll let you address the second question on the school zone, Councilman. I mean, I think you know that I've personally set up a meeting for you with Senator Carney's office.
Yes, you did.
Senator Carney has reached out to PennDOT.
Yeah.
Mike Galante has reached out to PennDOT. Joe Martin has reached out to PennDOT. We now have a meeting set up for Mike to speak directly with the senator's staff to help us liaise with PennDOT on the issue. It's just bureaucracy. It just takes time. I mean, we are continuing to work through the issue with PennDOT, and we will keep council and the public posted on PennDOT's responses. And Mike, if you have more up-to-date detail than that, please feel free to add.
I think you answered that well, Vince. As far as the Beverly flashing sign. Regarding the traffic studies, Parkview, as you know, was the second area that was targeted. The traffic counter was put at 2 locations along Parkview. The data is now being analyzed, and traffic and options to mitigate the traffic concerns on that road are being put together. And we hope to have a report by the end of this month. And then regarding the next roadways under review, as you know, the counter right now is at Owen Avenue. And then, work with the mayor's office and we'll target other roadways so we can keep the counter out on different roads to monitor, so we can, perform additional studies throughout the township.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other old business? Casey, Sadiq? You already had old business. You sure it's old business or your microphone's off?
No, it's old business. I would like
Okay.
to thank our mayor and also our police department for their quick action on.
You froze, Sadiq. Sadiq, you're frozen. Oh, you're moving again. Go ahead. Finish your
Okay.
sentence.
I would like to thank your internet connection is okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I would like to thank our mayor and our police superintendent to take quick action regarding the French barrier place on Powell Lane. And our mayor take, I think, a town hall meeting, virtual meeting, of course. And what is the update regarding this one? And also, I was requesting to have a physical meeting in the cemetery. Should I take initiate or somebody can work on that one? And also I would like to get support from all the council. And this is the request from our community, especially my district, the neighbors surrounding the cemetery.
Mayor, did you? Yep, go ahead.
Am I unmuted, Laura?
You're all good to go. Rock it out.
Okay. I'm looking at my calendar. No, we've been talking about this. We want to have an and this weekend looks bad. I think Councilman Sadiq and Council President Wentz, we talk offline and organize something. It's definitely something that we want to do, and we should include Superintendent Bernhardt as well. So we should take it offline and talk about organizing it. It's a great idea, and we want to do it. The weather's warming up, and we don't have, maybe in a couple months we won't have to do all our meetings by Zoom. Who knows?
Yeah, hey, I'm eagerly waiting to come to the township building for the physical meeting.
Oh, we're not going to be able to have our council meetings in the township building, just because the public can't fit in social distancing realm. But we will. I've been talking with the school district of when the school buildings open, that we can start meeting in their auditoriums, so that there's social distancing for the public, because there's no social distancing in our council chamber for the public. And it's a little tight for council and our supporting staff. Councilman Silva.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to just say thank you to all the people that helped out this Saturday when we had our second cleanup at Creek Road. It went very well, and I'd like to thank the mayor for being there as well. And yeah, it was a great event. We look forward to having the next one April 10th. It'll coincide with DCVA Earth Day. So thank you.
You're welcome. And it was fun pulling the large branches and trees out of that tunnel, that bridge thing underneath, that tunnel under the bridge. I got my exercise for the week. So thank you. Thank you for.
I knew you looked familiar from somewhere. Okay.
Exactly. All right. So I think it's time to move on to new business, and we have Councilman Wagner waiting for new business. Ms. Phillips, is that a new business hand or an old business hand? New business hand. Okay. So we have Councilman new business. We have Councilman Wagner. Go ahead.
Thank you. There are numerous rumors spreading on social media as well as others, no doubt spawned by media coverage regarding COVID relief and stimulus money that may or may not be coming to Upper Darby Township and Upper Darby School District as well. I'd like to know what we know about that. Does the administration expect that the township is going to be receiving a significant amount of that money? And if so, what plans do we have for its disposal for its use, and most particularly, to what extent, I hope entirely, will this council be involved in making those decisions? That's what I'd like to know about.
Mayor Keffer?
I'll just say in general, that our overall theory is that this is a one-time injection of funds. And we've been sent general guidelines, and we are looking forward to more specific guidelines where we can spend the money. I do think a lot of it's going to be spent in keeping people in their homes with mortgage and rental assistance. As to the amount that's been in the paper, I can't say what was in social media at all, but I mean, council can be, of course, part of the conversation and should be, but ultimately the people that are going to do the paperwork and make the decisions is the administration. But we want to hear from council, of course. I mean, CAO Rongioni, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it pretty well. I think you covered it pretty well, Mayor. It's not yet completely clear to us what exactly the parameters and restrictions will be on the money. Some of the previous COVID money had significant restrictions on how it could be utilized, and so we're certainly hoping that there are fewer restrictions. And we've set up some meetings with both our state and federal officials to discuss how we will get the money and how we'll be able to spend it. So we're really in very early stages of the process.
And I appreciate that we're in the very early stages. I get that. I raise it now, I think correctly in the category of new business, because I'd like the conversation about what's going to happen with this money to be in advance of receiving the money rather than afterward. I have to say, I'm a little distressed by what the mayor just said, because it sounded to me like you've already decided where quite a bit of this money is going to go. But it's my position anyway, this council should be centrally involved in making all decisions regarding where this money goes, subject, of course, to what.
Sorry, I have to mute myself
sorry?
here.
Subject, of course, to whatever legal restrictions come with the money. I realize that there have been restrictions in the past. It sounds like, at least, it's unclear yet, but it sounds like there'll be fewer restrictions this time, but we don't know that yet. I get it. Tell me this, though. Do we know what the township expects to receive? Have we been told that yet, or that we don't know that yet?
We've received varying numbers. Honestly, we're waiting for the meeting with Congresswoman Scanlon's office to get the definitive number, but we're talking tens of millions of dollars. I think the numbers that I've heard have ranged from 25 to 41 million. So it's significant.
Yeah, and I get that, and thank you for that. We hear from residents in the township one thing more than anything else, I believe anyway, as a member of this council for the last 15 years now. Our taxes are too high, and that has effects on everything, from their ability to pay their bills to their ability to sell houses when necessary. I would submit, if we're going to get an amount of money that may be as much as a third to half of our entire budget in a year, it should be, a lot of it should be used to reduce people's taxes. There may be other opinions, I get that, but those opinions should all be known and considered and directly involved in the decisions about it, about how the money is going to be spent. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you for listening to that.
Sure, absolutely. And it's a good suggestion, and we certainly all do hear about taxes a lot. I think it's important to remember, though, taxes generate revenue year over year, right? This is a one-time infusion of cash, and so it would be very difficult. We can't rely on this money, right? It's possible that it'll be doled out in 2 increments, one this year and one next year. But even if that were the case, what would happen in year 3 right, the money wouldn't be there. So we have to be very careful about how we do that.
I entirely agree that we got to be careful about it. But we need to let our residents know that is a prime consideration among you as administrators, us as legislators on council. At least that's my position anyway.
Okay. Councilwoman Phillips is next.
Thank you, Council President Wentz. Just want to add a little bit of insight about if we were to get some money, but I have to say something else. I know before it was like 4 phases for the COVID money, and I know it all went to mortgage and electricity. I don't know what this money is going to, so that's what I know. But anyway, I just want to thank the mayor for having me be on the Delaware County Reentry Coalition. This is about the reentry for returning citizens. We meet every quarter, and we met this past Tuesday, and it's about the theory of change. So we talk about things about strategies for returning citizens and their families, influential factors, problems and needs to be addressed, assumptions and desired results. And one of the subcommittees that I am on is about advocacy and policies. And one of the things in housing. So one of the things that we talked about is how can we get big companies in Delco to buy into this strategy? And we talked about meeting with the different CEOs in Delco. And one of the companies is Boeing. Just looking at my notes, so excuse me if I'm not looking at you guys. Boeing, Crozier, can't read my own handwriting. I'll just stop at Boeing. I'm sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. So we're planning to write letters. Jerry Sanders is in my group too. Sheriff Sanders, he's in my group. And we talked about how can we get them to buy into this and what does it look like for them. And we talked about federal bonding so they can get some type of tax credit and what their blueprint may look like for them. So it's in a very beginning stage. I'm very excited because I don't know if you guys know, in Pennsylvania, there are 32 reentry programs and Delco is not one of them. So hopefully Delco will have a reentry program for returning citizens. So that's where we are. And again, Mayor, I thank you for introducing me to this coalition. And I'm very excited to see what we're going to bring into Delaware County. So thank you. Just wanted to report that to you guys.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Phillips, when you do create a letter, please bring it to us for council. That would definitely be something like we have done for other important issues that our council should consider and sign on to.
Yep. I will. Thank you.
Definitely. Okay. Next up, we have Councilman Siddiq for new business. Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you, Madam President, to give me another opportunity regarding the vaccination. Since you know that Upper Darby is a diverse community and also District 6 is densely populated by Asian community. And as all of us know that Asian, those are elderly people and some first generation over here, they are behind to registration and all this thing, and that English is not the first language. So what I meant to say that many people reach out to me that how they can get the vaccination, if there's any way township or the hospital or the county can help us. And last week I sent a humble request to all our elected officials, including our mayor and all the high officials. And only Margot returned my call and talked with me regarding this vaccination. I would like to thank her that she concerned about it. And same time, I would like to ask our township official if there is any way, if we can group wise allow somewhere like a DCMH or Delco mobile vaccination clinic, can we accommodate some people? If there's any way anybody can help me and help us and help our elderly community people.
So Councilman Siddiqui, I'd just like to say that the clinic on Sunday at the Upper Darby High School is, it's organized through the county, and the county people, and the head of that was Tim Boyce, he thought that was the best clinic that they ever ran. There's a lot of parking, there were a lot of volunteers, and of course the professionals that are administering the vaccine. And our state reps and people in our office contacted people to go there. It wasn't a drive-through clinic. It wasn't a show up and get your shot clinic. I think because we did so well that the county's going to look to that spot in Upper Darby again, but I can't answer for them, and we don't have the capacity as a township to distribute vaccinations. But CAO Rangioni, if you want to follow up with anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been slower and more frustrating than all of us would like. I mean, most of the people on this call, certainly myself, and I know the mayor mentioned earlier, are not yet vaccinated as well. And so we understand everybody's frustration. The mayor is absolutely right. I think because of the way we've handled it with the county, not trying to compete with the county or step on the county's toes, but allow the county to do what is fundamentally one of its core responsibilities in terms of public health, is what enabled us to get the clinic in the first place, and also what made the county reach out to the township and ask us to engage community partners in order to get those community partners into the clinic. Now, there's 190,000 people in Delaware County who are in Category 1A, and we only did about 1,500 vaccines at the clinic. So those numbers are going to mean that on any one Sunday, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset. But the mosque was one of the community partners that was reached out to and that was given appointments at the first clinic in Upper Darby. So the township really is working very hard to get the county to come here and come back here and provide excellent facilities and resources and volunteers, and engaged a lot of community partners and community groups for those initial appointments, including in the 6th district, including the mosque as one of those community partners. So yeah, that's how it's all unfolded and being handled.
And also, Councilman Billups, I'll get you in one sec because I think it's pertaining to this. When I was there, I spoke with Ed Klein, who was in charge of the overall clinic realm. And he and I did talk about they've been looking for an ideal location to have a permanent clinic in Upper Darby. Our biggest snag is finding a location that's big enough with enough open space within a property, as far as like the gym, right? At the school, and having enough parking. They were able to set up one in Aston where they were able to take over a space. There was plenty of parking, plenty of space inside to set up a permanent vaccination location. They do 1,000 vaccinations a day there. They would love to have one in Upper Darby, and the high school is perfect, but unfortunately they can't use it during the weekdays because of school. So I know the mayor and CAO has been working with them throughout the last couple of months on trying to find an ideal location in Upper Darby to have a vaccination site. And, it's something that, they're definitely working on. The need for parking is really a key to that aspect. and you can't expect people to park in neighborhoods. We were processing 140 people an hour on Sunday. So consider 140, close to 100 to 140 cars parking in the parking lot every hour, moving through the process. So we would need a space with a lot of parking. And that would be a major concern in the equation. Ms. Phillips, you were also, Councilwoman Phillips, you were also there on Sunday.
Yeah, thank you. So
I really would like to, I'm not done yet.
Wait, Councilman Siddiq, please let Ms. Phillips respond because she was actually there at the clinic.
Okay.
So, and I was a part of the registration, and I hear you, Councilor Siddiq. And so when we were registering people, we had to verify their names and emails. And in some of those emails, it was a lot of people that had, I'm not going to say anyone's name, but it was a name that you were familiar with, Councilman Siddiq, that lived in the 6th district. So it was a lot of people from the 6th district that were on that were vaccinated. Maybe not all of them, but it was a lot that were there that day. So, and they will be there come the 18th for their second dose. So it was a lot. Maybe, I mean, it was 1,500 people. I mean, I know that's a small percentage compared to the 190,000 people that lives in Upper Darby, but a lot of people are getting vaccinated that's in the 6th district, because we did see a lot. I'm just going by that email of someone that I know that lives there, because he registered a lot of people that lives in the 6th. I'm just want to know that it was people that were there. So I just want to verify that with you.
Sure, yeah, I heard about it. Some of the people is there, and a couple people register it, and the privately.
And some people that were no-shows, so they actually call people and say, hey, I have a spot that's opened up, because some people didn't show up and they came right in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's why there's any way we can register some people, or I make some list of the people and give it to someone who is responsible.
So I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Laura or Mayor or Vincent Baggioni, the CAO, they already have the list that was made up. So there are people that were already on there. So the list was already done. So I don't, so if they already registered, they're on the list already, if I'm not mistaken.
So you're saying that the first vaccine is done last Sunday, and then April 18 is coming, or 18, right?
For
April,
the second one.
Second one.
Yeah,
so that time nobody can get the first one.
No, it's the second dose.
It's the second dose. Right. Just the second one. Yeah. So I don't know about if they're coming back. I don't know anything about that. I know they'll be back on the 18th for the second one. For all those people that got the first one on Sunday, they'll be back for the second dose on the 18th.
On 18th.
I don't know what's going to happen between now and the 18th for people that need the first dose.
First dose. Okay. That's the information I needed, so I can register some people.
Yeah.
So
I would say register them. I would say
everyone should register. Yes,
Yeah,
everyone needs to register through the county, so that they're on the list for when a clinic comes up and there's an opportunity, they can get called for an appointment.
Right.
Or they're calling different locations to get an appointment, but they need to be registered.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So next up, we have Councilman Gwynn.
I got my question already answered.
Okay, great. Anyone else with any new business? Councilwoman Blackwell. You got to turn on your microphone. Turn on your mic. Turn on your mic.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank you. So on March the 27th at 9 a.m., we're having a cleanup meet and greet at the Parkview Park. Everybody, please join. We would love to have you.
Great. Thank you. And I did forget in old business to mention that we did have a in-person awards for the Black History Month awardees to give them their certificates. I just wanted to thank the council members who attended, and Councilman Wagner was there, which was great, along with Councilwoman Billups, Tunis, Blackwell, and myself. So thank you for everyone who attended. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, that was cool.
Okay, great.
So that was really cool. Just wanted to throw that one in. Okay, seeing no more comments.
Motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn? Is that what you were asking, Mr. Councilman Tunis? Right? Motion to adjourn. Tunis
Seconded.
and Gwynn, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed to your name? Ayes have it. Thank you all very much. It's 10:30.